Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
A corner of his heart. Leon slowly turned, the twin moon's silver light grazing his naked chest and scattering shadows across the space. Surprise flashed across his golden eyes at seeing the figure in front of him, but it immediately smoothed out to a boyish, roguish smile. "Well, look who decided to drop by," he drawled, his voice a low, teasing vibration, humor humming along with each word. By the door stood Cynthia, her silky black hair flowing in soft waves around her fragile shoulders. Her wide black eyes, shining under the moonbeams, revealed both wonder and uncertainty. Her face, crowned with soft locks and flushed with a rosy glow, had an almost angelic beauty, cute, innocent, but tempting enough to awaken any man's passion. She stood quietly in the doorway, wrapped in a midnight blue nightgown that hugged her form like a second skin, the soft material flowing elegantly with every subtle movement. A thin slit ran up her thigh, showing smooth skin with every quiet step, and the low neckline provided a teasing glimpse of her collarbone and the gentle swell of her chest. The moonlight flooded over her, showcasing each elegant curve, illuminating her with an otherworldly glow. She was stunning, fragile but fearless, like a fantasy too beautiful to exist, yet indubitably human. She stood there, windless, her heart pounding away. When she entered his room, pushed open the door, looking for his characteristic mischievous grin, she stood stock still. The room was quiet, lit by faint moonlight pouring across the wooden floor. Leon stood by the window, shirtless, his back turned a little, muscles outlined and glinting slightly from a fresh shower. The chill air kissed his rumpled hair, surrounded a face absorbed in thought. His eyes were far away, staring at something beyond the window, his face gentle with unvoiced yearning. She couldn't tear her eyes away. He didn't appear real. He resembled a statue come to life, gorgeous, unattainable, and unwittingly compelling. Her breath caught, her heart pounding louder than her feet. She couldn't turn away. He wasn't real, more a statue come to life, handsome and unattainable, unwittingly enthralled. Her breath caught, her heart pounding harder with each step he made. His voice cut through the silence, shaking her from her daze. Well, look who came back." Cynthia blinked in surprise. Her lips parted a fraction, but nothing emerged. Leon was fully turned to her now, his golden eyes aglow in the moonlight. His black shoulder-length hair was tousled, and his arrogant stance, barefoot and bare-chested, left her gasping. She could sense her pulse racing, her mind struggling to catch up. Leon raised an eyebrow, his teasing amusement clear. "Priestess," he breathed, his voice low and taunting. Nevertheless, Cynthia was speechless, lost in the moment, ensnared by his presence. He laughed, moving closer to her gradually. Nevertheless, Cynthia didn't respond. Her mind was still distant, ensnared in awe. He laughed, moving closer to her gradually, observing her intently. But she didn't respond. Her mind was still distant, ensnared in his presence. When he was an inch from her, he spoke once more, his voice playful. "Priestess." Her head jerked up, taken aback. She hadn't noticed how close he was, just inches away. Her eyes widened, gas caught in her throat, and a wave of color flushed into her cheeks, betraying her flustered condition. "Lord, Leon," she stuttered, not daring to meet him straight in the eyes. Leon cocked his head, a look of amusement flickering in his eyes. "So, my priestess," he whispered, voice low and teasing, "what do you do here in such lovely clothes?" Cynthia's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She attempted but stopped. Leon leaned forward a little, his warm breath against her skin. "Don't tell me," he teased, smile. "You came in Arya's stead to seduce me?" Her eyes widened, a flustered gasp on her lips. "And no, Lord, that's not. This isn't what you think," she stammered, hands raised in alarm, her whole body flushed with red color from head to toe. Leon smiled softly, his eyes glinting with mischief. "Then what is it, my dear priestess?" he asked, his voice filled with playful curiosity. Looking down, not able to look at him, Cynthia stammered, her voice shaking. Lady Arya said, "Tea tonight. I should sleep here. W with you." She lost her words, her face burning with shame. She shifted uncomfortably, the blush deepening. She said she had to finish some preparations for tomorrow's trip, she continued softly, as if attempting to understand it herself. The faster she talked, the more agitated she grew, her heart pounding in her chest. Leon blinked in surprise, then raised an eyebrow with quiet amusement. "I see," he thought to himself in wonder. "My lovely wifey is playing behind the scenes to smooth the way of my harem path." How he smiled inwardly, the thought warming his chest with mischief and affection. "I must have done something very good, or I've seen in my previous life, to have such wonderful and caring wifey." In silent wonder, Leon thought, if Arya hadn't set this up, I was already going to make Cynthia mine, and not her alone. Kyr and Syra, too. Today, as Leon spent the market with them, a gentle mechanical chime resonated within his mind. His quiet system had given him 3 new assignments. No sooner did he think it than a clear display flashed into existence, showing the new assignments. Ding! A radiant panel glowed before his eyes. Only for his eyes. Mission triggered. Fuck Cynthia. Objective. Make Cynthia completely yours. Reward. Love meter unlocked. Plus 70 black points. Warning. Failure will disable Touch of Charm. Time limit. 18 days. Mission triggered. Fuck Kyra. Objective. Make Kyra completely yours. Reward. Charm Maximizer. Plus 40 black points. Warning. Failure will disable Touch of Charm. Time limit. 18 days. Mission triggered. Fuck Syra. Objective. Make Syra completely yours. Reward. Covenant of Will. Plus 40 black points. Warning. Failure will disable Touch of Charm. Time limit. 18 days. Leon smirked. 18 days? I doubt I'll need anywhere near that long. Grinning at the hovering prompt, he didn't even see Cynthia looking at him in curiosity. "Lord?" she asked softly, tilting her head curiously. Leon blinked, having been drawn back from his thoughts, and turned to her and spoke. Yes." She scowled slightly. "What? Are you staring at an air?" Leon blinked, coming back to reality. He waved a hand discreetly, causing the system panel to disappear. "Nothing," he replied with a gleaming, teasing smile. "Just admiring how unbelievably sexy you look tonight." Cynthia's eyes went wide, and a hot blush crept up on her cheeks, burning to the very tips of her ears. Her mouth dropped open, but no sound emerged. Nothing more than a tiny sigh escaped her. She glanced away, flustered and speechless. Leon smiled warmly, entertained by her response. Too cute for her own good was her blush. He drew nearer, his tone softer now, eyes warm. "Arya sent you, did she?" Blushing, Cynthia nodded shyly. Leon allowed his eye to follow gradually down her nightgown, the corner of his mouth curled. "And so tell me, dear, this little dress you're wearing," he continued, his eyes sparkling with humor, "you purchased it today at the marketplace with Arya, didn't you?" She nodded steadily, her gaze falling, her hands fluttering at sides of her gown, too embarrassed to look at him. Leon smiled softly. "It appears my little Arya is becoming braver," he thought to himself, "and I approve of her braveness." A smile curved his lips. Maybe she needs a special reward, and a sleepless night reward for her. Leon placed the idea aside with a serene smile, his attention coming back to the woman in front of him. He took another cautious step forward, bridging the gap between them until they stood a breath apart. "Cynthia," he whispered, his voice softer now, with a touch of sincerity. "You know, once we cross that line, there's no return." Cynthia gazed up at him, her heart racing, cheeks still flushed. With a nervous hesitation, she nodded. Leon smiled, his fingers lightly sweeping a stray lock of hair from her face, his touch soft and lingering. "Are you sure, dear?" she faltered, then replied with quiet resolve. Lord, you understand I am here to serve. As my goddess's priestess, it is my responsibility to guard you, to stand behind you, and to do your bidding, whatever your heart desires. But Leon's gaze narrowed ever so slightly, interest flaring as he detected her hesitation. But, she went on, her tone softer now, eyes dropping to the floor, this morning, when you talked at breakfast about friendship and how you look at things from your side, I noticed something in you, a greatness, a quiet kindness, a man I can trust, a man I would trust my life with, a man every girl dreamed of. She glanced up once more, her black eyes glinting with absolute sincerity. I don't want to be merely your servant, as you put it, she whispered, her emotions trembling in her voice. I want to be your companion, someone by your side in this world. I don't require much. I don't even require a title. A little room in your heart is sufficient. A small corner where I can remain, even when one day you no longer require me. Leon stood stock still for a heartbeat, her words ringing in his head. They were straightforward, but they cut deeper than any great promise ever had. He felt the spark of something warm and solid in his chest. A pang, really chipped out of her unadorned sincerity, left vulnerable. She wasn't giving him her body. She was giving him loyalty, devotion, the rawest sort of love, without hope. Just a spot at his side, just a niche of his heart. Gently, he cupped her cheek, brushing his thumb across her skin. Cynthia, he whispered, forehead resting against hers. You're already in my heart, dear. Cynthia's breath caught as his words rested in her heart. Her eyes sparkled with vulnerability, and her voice trembled slightly, hardly above a whisper. Please, never leave me behind, she begged, her hand shaking against his chest. Let me remain at your side, even if it's quietly, forever. Leon didn't respond in words. Leon took a step closer, drawing her into his arms. Cynthia's breath was stolen by the shock of sudden closeness, her mind reeling with shock at his proximity. Then, without speaking, his mouth on hers. It wasn't a needy kiss. It was slow, deep, sincere. Her mind, briefly, short-circuited, not with lust, but with emotion. She dissolved into him, her arms going around his waist automatically, as if he would vanish. And in that instant, in the light of the silver moons, Cynthia was simply a woman, wanting nothing so much as a space in his heart. The moonlight gently filtered through the tall, arched windows, casting a silvery sheen across Cynthia's and Leon's skin. As he broke from the kiss, Leon lingered just long enough to look in her face, his breath blending with hers. She still in his arms. Cynthia remained motionless, her wide black eyes reflecting surprise, her cheeks flushed with a vivid blush. Her chest rose and fell in quick, shallow breaths, as though she'd forgotten how to breathe. Her body refused to respond. Her thoughts, once coherent, now scattered like leaves in a storm. Had that truly just happened? Leon laughed low, a rasping, amused sound that vibrated against her mouth. His fingers squeezed around her waist, pulling her towards him, pinning her into him. He could feel every inch of her, her soft shape, the softness of her flesh, the slight tremble that swept along her thighs, and the light press of her chest against his own. Her heartbeat pounded against his fingers. As his single arm continued to hold her anchored to him, his other hand crept up slowly to push a wayward strand of dark hair behind her ear. His fingers mapped the curve of her cheek with a gentleness that hung suspended in the air. Her skin shivered at the light touch, her body reacting in ways she couldn't control. That slight, nearly unconscious movement broke through her trance. Her gaze flared up, and there he was, his face inches from hers. His golden eyes shone with a mischievous spark, and his breath purred against her lips. Still processing, "Little priestess," he whispered, his tone low and teasing. She came to a stop, her breath stuck in her throat. Her cheeks flushed a bright red as the distance between them diminished. Her big black eyes met his, and all she could sense was the thud of her heart. He leaned in closer, his thumbs stroking the lower curve of her lip, slow and on purpose. So cute, He breathed, his voice dark with intent. And so mine. Her lips parted, eyelashes fluttering like leaves on the breeze. His voice sent a shiver through her, first her breast, then down, where the pain rooted and flowered. Her heart sounded like a drum in a silent room. And then it occurred to her. He kissed me. He actually kissed me. But her brows furrowed, frustration rising up within her. She hadn't reciprocated. She hadn't kissed him in return, not even a graze. Idiot, she reprimanded herself. You went stiff. Your first kiss, and you just stood there like a statue. What will he think of you now? That you didn't feel it? That he didn't want it? Her gaze darted up to him, uncertain and wary, looking for a glimpse of what he was thinking, fear seeping in with each passing second of silence. But before her mind could spin out of control, a sharp pressure on her hips caused her to gasp. She looked up, mouth agape in shock, eyes wide as he looked back at her, grinning like the wolf he was. What are you thinking about, my dear? Leon asked suavely, still holding her hips. She flushed further, the red spreading to her ears. She swallowed hard, gathering her thoughts together. She had to say something. She had to explain. It's my first kiss, she finally blurted out, her voice shaking. Her fingers nervously wrung the material of own dress, trying to find something to grasp onto. And I just blanked. She finished, her chest heaving in embarrassment. She felt the blush rise on her face, shame creeping at the fringes of her mind. She paused, her eyes wide and vulnerable as she looked up at him. And I don't want you to think that I didn't want to kiss you, she whispered, a touch of insecurity creeping in her voice. It was all so sudden. I didn't know what to do. Leon blinked, obviously digesting her words. His lips curled into a gentle, amused smile. Leon blinked, on her word, and how then laughed softly, with a warmth that didn't mock, but delighted in her innocence. Cynthia furrowed her brow, perplexed by the sound of it. Was he laughing at her? At how she was reacting? Just that, he murmured, his voice low and teasing. Then I'll kiss you again. Before she could answer, he leans toward her and his mouth claimed hers. This time, the kiss was not soft or gentle anymore. It was deeper, sensual, as he lapped at her top lip, slow and deep, and Cynthia's eyes opened wide in shock before fluttering closed, her heart pounding in her chest. Her body shuddered in reaction. Resolved not to make the same mistake as before, she hesitantly sucked on his lower lip. Awkward but genuine, Leon let out a contented growl, a sound that sent her pulse racing. Then his tongue slid into her mouth, hot and insistent. It urged hers to follow with his. She gasped softly, startled by the invasion, but she attempted, her tongue stroking against his shyly, awkwardly, clumsily. The kiss became sloppy, wet, and loud, but they didn't care. It became deeper with every second, until Cynthia was panting, fingers grasping his shoulder reflexively. Her soft little moans escaped against his mouth as his hands wandered freely, cupping her hips, squeezing them with firm, claiming pressure. She broke the kiss first with a gasp, but before she could even inhale, he took her mouth again, groaning into the kiss like he couldn't get enough. Finally, their lips parted with a wet pop, a strand of saliva connecting them. Cynthia leaned slightly against his chest, dazed, face flushed, her lips swollen and her breathing ragged. Leon gazed down at her breathless, his golden eyes black with passion, adrenaline pumping in his veins. His body reacted instinctively. His dick pulsed, hard and insistent, buried under the material of his pants. He hoisted her from her waist in his arms without speaking. She cried out in shock, but she spoke just as Leon caught her mouth halfway through a cry. He kissed her once more, fierce and deep, devouring her shock. Her thighs braced against his waist before she even knew it, her body molding to his as if it were meant there. She held on to him, soft and yielding, her fingers knotting in the muscle at his shoulders. Leon moved slow, measured steps to the side of the bed. Then he fell onto its bed with her atop him, allowing her weight to settle on his chest. His arms never relinquished her. They slowly parted from kiss, both panting, and a thin thread of saliva hung between their lips before it snapped. Cynthia blinked, stunned, attempting to collect her wits, only to become aware of the position she was now sitting on him. Her thighs wrapped around his waist, her breasts pressed against his chest. And she could feel it too, something hard and thick pressing against her lower abdomen through his pants. Her eyes grew wide. Her body froze. She wasn't a kid. She knew what it was. Leon grinned lazily at her reaction, fully aware of the cause of her sudden immobility. Amusement danced in his gold eyes, but underneath, something more existed, something gentle. Even in that fraught quiet, though, he sensed another thing, the breakable manner in which she quivered in his arms. So light, so fragile, like if he relaxed his grip for a second, she would drift away. But then he shifted in one smooth, dominant movement. He rolled and flipped her over beneath him. Cynthia released a soft gasp as her back hit the bed, his weight coming down on her just enough to hold her there. His body was along hers. Her legs parted a little to take him in. She could feel it all, his bare chest, his heat, the hard line rubbing gently in her clothed center. "Now, Cynthia," Leon intoned, his voice low and husky, "you are mine. Your body, your soul, your life. Everything yours now is mine." Her heart stilled, and then began to go haywire. She parted her lips to talk, but he was already back at it again, slow, claiming, reveling in each gentle contour of her cherry-fresh lips. The priestess. Leon's lips took hers again, slow, firm, and authoritative. Cynthia's breath caught as she whimpered against him, her arms creeping up his back, tracing his muscles weakly under her fingertips. Her body relaxed under the heat of his kiss. But this kiss, it wasn't about possession. It was exploration. He pulled back, just to follow with soft, hot kisses her other cheek, the corner of her eye, her jaw, her forehead, then back to her lips again. Her breath caught at the brush of his lips all over his entire face, as if he were claiming her, marking her not with force, but with reverence and devotion. And all the while, Leon's hands glided under her nightgown, slow and deliberate, the heat of his palms tracing up her waist. The light material clung to her skin as he reached further, sliding past to her breast. Cynthia gasped softly when his fingers brushed the underside of her breasts, still covered by the lace of her bra. She trembled, her breath hitching as he cupped her breast, firm yet gentle. "You're already so warm," he whispered, lips close to her ear. His thumbs traveled in gentle circles over the peaks, still clad in the thin fabric. Even under the lace, the response was immediate. Her nipples grew rigid under his caress. "Yeah," she breathed, attempting to stifle the moan that threatened in her throat as he started to squeeze and manipulate them slowly, feeling out her contours with deliberate slowness. Her eyes drifted closed, overwhelmed by the feeling. Leon smiled at her answer. "Sensitive, aren't you?" His voice low, teasing. She parted her lips, perhaps to say something, but only a soft moan escaped her that made him move closer. His fingers glided slowly, almost gently, as he massaged her breasts beneath the fabric, fingers caressing and playing until her body stretched out toward him, asking for more. "El Lord," she breathed, her voice trembling. The manner in which she moaned, shivering, panting, only seemed to cause his cock to ache all the more. "Shoo," he whispered against her neck, his voice as smooth as silk infused with a burning temperature. He kissed her there, beneath her ear, then lower on her neck. Then again, this time harder, marking her. A tiny, red hickey flowered where his mouth had rested. Cynthia groaned once more, at the mercy of it, her body curving beneath him as his hands worked over her breasts, his finger playing across her nipple through the delicate lace, and his lips leaving her another bruise on her collarbone. She could hardly think. Her body was heating up too fast, her skin aching to be touched more by him. Everywhere he kissed, touched, or breathed on felt sensitive to the point of madness. "If he stops touching me, I'll lose my mind," she murmured in heart. His scent, His smell washed over her nostrils and blanketed her brain. Fresh, warm with that subtle, scented something she couldn't pinpoint. It dazzled her, took what was left of her composure. It made her lightheaded. Why does this hurt so much? She thought, catching her breath. Why can't I stop? But as soon as the idea passed through her mind, she knew the answer in her chest, in the hard pound of her heart. There was no little doubt remaining now. Her body had already made up its mind. She didn't want him to stop. Not now, not ever. She wanted more, his touch, his kiss. Leon leaned back a little, his breathing labored, his golden eyes fixed on her flushed, gasping figure. She was utterly ravaged looking, her skin rosy, her body shuddering, breathing shallow, and her skin slicked with sweat. And still, he hadn't even started to really touch her. Then, with a hesitant, measured move, his fingers followed the edge of her nightgown. "May I?" he inquired teasingly, his voice a hushed, sly whisper that had her heart thundering. Her heart was pounding in her chest, each beat more resonant than the last. She didn't pause. Her desire burned too fiercely. She wanted him to touch her, claim her, leave marks on her, destroy her. Then, with a gentle breath, she nodded, her eyes dropping into shyness, cheeks burning with heat. That expression, innocent but willing, gave him a sudden jolt of electricity. His heart pounded. He smiled, slow, hungry, full of pent-up longing. He started pulling the silky blue nightgown up, teasing her with each inch revealed. Her smooth thighs first, then the soft curve of her waist, and then the fragile shape of her breasts, barely covered with lace. He yanked the gown over her head and then discarded it, forgotten. She lay under him now, dressed in nothing but a transparent black net bra and matching black panties, her snowy skin radiating under the moonlight filtered through window. Cool air stroked across her body, and she shivered. Automatically, she attempted to cover herself, arms crossing over chest, but it was too late. Leon had already glimpsed everything and wanted more. Then Leon's hands grasped her wrists, gentle but firm. "Don't," he whispered, his voice low but genuine and deeper. "Why hide, when you look that damn beautiful?" Cynthia stood still under his eyes. Her breath was trapped in her throat. Her heart pounded. The softness in his words burned through her like flames, and slowly, bashfully, she let her arms drop to her sides, baring herself completely to him. Leon's gaze wandered over her like a languid touch. Her breasts were full, soft, and beautifully outlined behind the filmy netted material. Her black lace bra hugged her breasts tightly, pushing them together just enough to deepen the cleavage of her bosom. He could see her nipples slightly visible under the thin material, already erect, flushed, responding to his teasing. Her panties were matching black, snug and smooth, displaying a small, moist stain in the middle, testament to her desire, which caused his breath to catch. Her black hair fell in waves over the silk sheets, dark and sleek as spilled ink. Her skin was flushed from head to toe, a deep red hue that equaled the heat building inside her. Her dark eyes were heavy, quivering under long lashes, as if she were trapped in the clutches of a sun. The intensity of his gaze made her feel exposed, vulnerable. Embarrassment crept over her, and she turned her head away, unable to meet his eyes. Why does he look at me like that? She wondered. Like I'm prey, and he's the predator. Leon leaned down afterwards, slipping lower onto her chest, exhaling gently as his lips brushed against her cleavage. He lingered there, drawing in the heat of her skin, the hint of floral scent wafting up from her body, sweet, heady, hers alone. It filled his lungs, and for a moment he closed his eyes as though her presence disarmed him. He breathed on her skin. "You smell so damn addictive, priestess," and kissed her cleavage with a slow, deep one. Cynthia bit her lip, a gentle whimper escaping, MNNHH, as the mouth of his pressed a slow, slow kiss in between the rounds of her breasts. Her breath caught, her hands fisting in the sheets she lay on. So soft, he murmured. So perfect, he whispered, lips moving on her cleavage. "You're driving me insane." Cynthia bit her lip, her hands clutching the sheets. His voice, his kisses, his touch, all at once, overwhelmed her senses. Her whole body felt like it was burning from the inside. Leon's hand slipped around her back, and with a gentle click, the bra clasp released. She raised her arms reflexively, letting him slip the straps down and pull it free. Her breasts spilled loose, round, yielding, topped with taut pink nipples that invited his touch. Leon drew up a little, gasping. "So beautiful." Leon breathed, his tone of soft wonder. Not mockery, but raw, unself-conscious admiration. Cynthia flushed, her cheeks hollowing with heat. But this time, she didn't look away. She didn't hide. She let him see. His eyes grazed her body slowly, as if in reverence, as if memorizing every inch. He leaned closer, his lips brushing against the gentle slope of her breast. "Goddesses should be jealous of you," he breathed, every word underlined with hunger. Her breathing caught. "Why, you shouldn't say those things," she breathed on shallow gasps, her voice shaking with shyness and anticipation. "But I mean every word," he said, his lips tracing deeper. "And your body true me more than your word does." Leon's lean, and his lips probed her lips with slow, deliberate reverence. His lips discovered her skin, warm, flushed, shuddering beneath each kiss. Cynthia gasped, her breath caught as his tongue drew delicate circles, setting fire with each sweep. Cynthia cried out, arching her back. "El Lord!" Leon's lips migrate to her breast, lips brushing hers softly before wandering to her chin, then her neck. His hands went back to her exposed chest, his fingers squeezing softly, kneading, teasing her nipples between his fingers. Cynthia groaned, her back curving. This is making me crazy." His lips found her collarbone, and then he lowered himself down to the top rise of her breast. He kissed, then licked, then finally sucked one nipple in his mouth. He growled against her breast softness, enjoying the way she moaned, the way her fingers gripped his hair. Her moan was high and shrill as he sucked gently, tongue lashing the sensitive tip, then nipping lightly before calming it with slow strokes. Her hands shot to his head, fingers twisting in his black hair, pushing him deeper into her breast. Leon groaned softly against her flesh, moving to the other breast, doing the same teasing tenderness. He sucked slowly, greedily, as if savoring something holy. "She's flawless. All of her. And she's mine." After he had claimed both nipples, he started leaving kisses down once more, along her ribs, over her belly, to her navel. His tongue darted over her belly button, and Cynthia shook violently. Then he halted, kneeling between her legs, eyes concealing her treasure. And then he froze, kneeling between her thighs, his eyes fixed on the tiny wet patch on her smooth black panty. His hand stroked her thighs with slow reverence. "Cynthia," he spoke low, soft, nearly reverent. Her breath hitched, heart pounding. "I'm going to taste you now," he whispered softly, not asking permission, but telling her what was next. Her eyes went wide. "Wait, Leon." But he didn't. He leaned forward and kissed directly to her clothed clit. Her hips twitched, a sharp gasp spilling from her lips. The heat of his mouth, even through the fabric, sent her twitching in shock. He kissed again, slow, deliberate, and again. Her panties were damp now, the dark wet stains spreading wider by the second. This is too much." Leon looked up at her then, hair slightly tousled, his lips little wet, and eyes gleaming with desire. "You're going insane for me already," he said with a smug smile. And he was right. Cynthia was stretched out, legs shaking, flushed skin, black eyes glassed over with lust. Her breasts rose and fell in gasping breaths. Her nipples strained, still firm and wet from his lips. Her panties were almost soaked, stuck to her wet folds. And she couldn't help looking at him, his face, his mouth, the way he never looked away from her. She had never felt so open, or so desired, and she desired more. The air in Leon's room was heavy, scented with the warmth of desire, the aroma of her skin, and something deeper, more primal. Moonlight streamed in from the twin moons overhead, casting pale silver on Cynthia's naked flesh, so that she seemed to be chiseled from starlight. She stretched out breathless, her dark hair scattered upon his velvet covers, her chest heaving and falling in shuddering rhythm. Her nightgown and bra lay discarded already, revealing her soft, warm skin, was filled with marked by his kissed and claimed. Her nipples throbbed from his previous attention, still hard and sensitive. Soft hickeys spread over her neck and breasts like wild roses. A film of sweat coated her skin, proof of their increasing intimacy. Only one piece of clothing now stood between her femininity and him. A delicate black panty clung to her heat, wet and fragrant with desire. His golden eyes blazed hot with an intensity that charged the air around him. As he dropped lower, his lips grazing the shivering skin of her inner thigh, making her shiver. Cynthia's breath caught, her fingers closing over the sheets like they were the only thing holding her anchored to the spinning vortex of sensation. He whispered against her skin, his voice low and teasing, each word a caress that made her heart race, his lips trailing closer to the final barrier between them. "Even your scent is driving me mad, Cynthia." His hands gently gripped her hips, thumbs tracing idle circles on her flushed skin. But it wasn't his fingers that removed her final veil of modesty. It was his mouth. He kissed down her stomach, pausing at her navel, his hot lips on her shaking skin, until he came to the delicate edge of her final piece of clothing, black lace, hugging like shadows in moonlight. He didn't hurry. He stayed, breathing her in. "I want to taste every inch of you," he whispered against her skin, the heat of his breath sending sparks across her body. Then, slowly, deliberately, he caught the waistband of her panty in his teeth and started to pull them down, inch by inch. The fabric glided down her warm skin, causing her to shiver. Her thighs trembled, her breath shallow, trapped between the tension of her body and the increasing ache within her. Each slow, deliberate movement seemed to ignite her whole being with a need she couldn't deny. Her eyes went wide, a flush spreading across her face as her final vestige of modesty was stripped away from her, her body shaking with anticipation as his lips delicately stripped away her last veil. And when it was off, her womanhood, naked, exposed, silky soft, flushed, and slick with arousal, was bathed in cool air and his fiery stare. Leon froze, his head, already muddled by lust, now plunged deeper into something primeval. Her smell was more pronounced now, sugary, heady, intimate, almost floral with a musky undertone that made his lips tingle. Reason and restraint were dissolving like threads in flames. "She's beautiful," his mind went. So pink, so soft, so utterly mine. He didn't say anything. He just moved. He leaned in slowly and kissed her again, lower this time, deeper along the soft folds of her inner thigh. Her body shuddered underneath his mouth. Then he discovered it, that delicate bud, tucked away between velvet folds, waiting for him. He kissed it, softly, reverently, as if it were something holy, something reserved only for him. Cynthia sighed softly, hips jerking, her thighs clenching his head as his tongue started to dance on her folds. "Ea, El Lord Leon." The ragged sound of her voice sent something feral coursing through him. He let out a low groan, the vibration humming against her flesh. Her flavor was like the first rain in an age of drought, sweet and feral and maddening, a splash of life on his tongue. He lapped her slowly, teasing at the tender creases of her womanhood, tasting her, instructing her with each thrust. His tongue danced around her tender nub, then pulled down, only to come back again, softer, harder, wetter. Each flick made her legs shiver. Each suck pulled out more of her heat. His mouth. What is he doing? Why does it feel like Cynthia's thoughts had fled, her hands over her face as she moaned through her fingers? This isn't a dream. Oh, goddess, this is real. Leon, hungry and devoted, wrapped his arms around her thighs and held her close against his mouth. He could sense her thighs clench with each movement, hear each desperate gasp and breathless whisper. And then, Leon, I can't. She broke off speaking. There was a thrill down her entire length as she came swiftly, utterly, against his lips. Her very being spouted against his tongue, and he swallowed her whole without any restraint, savoring every bit as if it were sacred, like fine wine reserved for him alone. When her body finally relaxed, twitching from aftershocks and breathless, Leon slowly got up from between her shaking legs. His lips were moistened with her nectar. His golden eyes, darkened with hunger and passion, glowed with a flicker of pride, satisfied, possessive, dangerously pleased. He slowly licked his lower lip and gazed down at her with a smirk. "You taste perfect," he whispered, "like something forbidden and mine." Cynthia could hardly lift her eyes. Her body shook still, flesh wet with perspiration and bristling with aftershocks. Her breasts rose and fell, her chest heaving and her nipples flushing and heavy with each ragged breath, and her lips were parted in shocked wonder. She had never experienced such a thing, such ecstasy, such letting go. Her femininity pulsed still softly, her thighs glistening wet from his ardor. And yet, her heart beat faster than ever, not from the pleasure he had already taken from her, but from the way he regarded her now. Eyes dark, hungry, possessive, as if all that had come before had been only a tease, a prelude, and now the real claiming would start. Still gasping, her voice shook as it escaped her parted lips. "You? I didn't know it could feel like that. I've never—" "I know," Leon murmured. His voice was low, laced with molten heat, like smoke curling around her skin. His smirk held wicked confidence, but his eyes, they softened, tender, proud, something that made her stomach flutter and her thighs clench all over again. Then, slowly, he leaned over and kissed a final time the inside of her thigh, directly where her body still tingled from the worship of his mouth. Her muscles contracted in response to contact, her flesh hypersensitive and hungry. Then he stood up, and so did her look, still befuddled, still flushed, caught in the reverie of aftershock and expectation. And then he reached for the waistband of his trouser. Her gasp caught in her throat. Time slowed down. His fingers closed around the cloth, and he started to descend his trousers, slow, agonizing, deliberate, a silent request for her to observe. And she did. The shape caught her first, thick, long, already taut beneath the final piece of cloth keeping them apart. Veins pressed against the fabric, prominent, throbbing with pent-up hunger. Her mouth opened involuntarily. "Oh, goddess!" Leon unbuckled his pants and allowed them to drop to the ground. His dick now bursting forth, her eyes opened wide. The flame danced across his naked form, shadow and light casting him as if he were a sculpture animated. Her gaze swept down from his sharp jaw to his broad chest, every ridge of muscle taut and cut with strength, his abs leading into deep grooves that framed his manhood like a divine arrow. And then, lower, she saw it. Her breath left her in a gasp. His dick leapt free, thick, throbbing with veins, standing tall in arousal, proud and heavy at the base, twitching with every thump of his heart. It was larger than she'd anticipated, hard, warm, the tip of his dick glinting with his arousal. He was breathtaking, overwhelming, unstoppable. Her thighs closed together involuntarily. "He's so." She swallowed hard, large. "That's what's supposed to go inside me?" Her body hungered for him, slippery and wet, but a thread of fear curled under her passion. A tremor of fear. Can I even handle him? Will he shatter me? Her breathing quickened. Her pulse battered in her ears. Her mind fought between need and fear. Leon saw it all in her eyes. The dilating pupils, the parting and then closing of her lips, the flush spreading down over her chest, the tension in her legs just a little bit. A provocative smile curled the corner of his mouth. With each step closer, his cock lurching with the movement, heavy and proud. His body emitted heat and male power. He stood at the side of the bed, looking down at her as if she were the only thing in the world that mattered. Then, with surprising gentleness, he got onto the bed then and leaned on her, his bare body touching her bare body. His hand rested on her cheek, and his thumb followed the heat of her flushed skin, anchoring her in that one intimate touch. Cynthia's breath came in shallow gasps as she felt him, his arousal pressing against her, making her shiver with anticipation. She moaned softly, her body reacting instinctively, a flush spreading across her skin. "Hun." She trembled, not only from desire, but from the vulnerability of the moment. Leon observed her intently, his dark eyes burning with lust, but there was a gentleness to his stare. A teasing grin curled on his lips, and he bent towards her, his tone low and spoken with a playful tone. "You're overthinking it," he breathed, his voice like a soft touch. "Afraid I won't fit." Her eyes flew up to his, her face shocked. He'd caught the hesitant thought, knew precisely what she was thinking. He smiled, a slow, confident smile that sent her pulse racing. "But don't worry," he assured her, his voice steady and certain. "You will. I'll make sure of it. I fit just perfectly inside you." The force of his words struck her like a spark. A bead of heat flared low in her stomach. The way he said it, like a promise, a vow, went deeper than any sweet word ever could. "You're mine now, Cynthia," he said softly, his tone gruff and possessive. "And I'm going to show you precisely what that looks like." He leaned down and touched his lips to her temple, then to her cheek, then dangled just inches over her mouth. Her skin sizzled beneath his lips. Her entire body shook, half expectation, half capitulation. She couldn't trust her voice. Her entire world had narrowed down to the space between them. But she inclined her head. A breath. A whisper. "Okay." Leon kissed her, slow and devouring. And when his body rolled to join hers, skin against skin, Cynthia felt the remaining fear burn away under the flames of his touch. She was his, and he was hardly finished. Leon unbuckled his trousers and allowed them to fall to the ground, his dick springing forth, thick, hungry, and yearning for the untried woman that stretched out before him. Cynthia's breath caught, her wide eyes betraying wonder and nerves. He saw it. The corner of his mouth twitched in satisfaction. That expression on her face, it was addictive. Nothing fueled a man's ego better than raw, unfiltered desire. Without ever breaking eye contact, he stepped onto the bed, standing between her shaking thighs. Cynthia, torn between excitement and shame, automatically raised her hands to her face, peeking through her fingers like a shy maiden. Her cheeks flushed with warmth as her eyes dropped, unable to help but take in the view of his stiff length, so near, so real. Her heartbeat resonated loudly within her chest, every beat reminding her that she was about to surrender herself to him, something both exhilarating and frightening. The prospect of losing her virginity to Leon made her blush with bashfulness, her body shivering with anticipation. Leon saw in her shyness, her vulnerability, the tension in her limbs, the shiver of anticipation in her breath. But only made him harder. That innocence, that surrender. It was fucking intoxicating. He reached down, holding his cock and rubbing it slowly against her soft, swollen pink lips. Her folds were already wet, and he groaned softly at the feeling. "Don't look away," he whispered, his voice low and coarse with desire. "Watch. Feel it. This is the moment we become one." I'm too ashamed," Cynthia whispered, her voice shaking as her eyes closed tightly, her heart pounding in her chest. Her body shook under him, too overwhelmed by the exposure of the moment. "You can do it like this." "I see, can't look." Every slow stroke of Leon's dick over her fragile folds sent a burst of pleasure through her. The feelings overpowered her, intensifying her shyness with each breath, making it more difficult to concentrate as her body reacted to him in ways she hadn't dreamt. Leon couldn't stifle the small, knowing smile that pulled at his lips. Her honesty, her vulnerability, only served to make him more hungry for her. Leaning in, he whispered in her ear, his voice soft but teasing. "Then just feel every moment, baby, every inch, every second of this." With slow purpose, Leon moved his hips, angling his dick against her opening, parting her soft folds a little as he teased her slowly, just enough to get her to feel him, but not enough to penetrate. His pre-cum and Cynthia's love juices combined, creating a dirty mess that slicked their skins. Cynthia believes that at any second, Leon's dick would enter her pussy. Her body trembled every time the bulging head of his dick nudged gently into her opening, teasing her just hard enough to make a harsh gasp catch on her lips. Her breath caught, and with a voice shaking with raw hunger, she whispered, "I want it inside. I want her dick. I need it." Leon leaned in further, softly tugging her shaking hands from her face. He gave her a soft, lingering kiss on the lips, warm and reassuring, and slowly drew back far enough to catch her eyes. His golden eyes were filled with a gentleness that caused her heart to flutter. He whispered in voice so full of softness, "I'll be gentle. I want it to be perfect, unforgettable, for you, my priestess." The gentleness in his tone made her cheeks flush. Flames spread through her body, and while her lips parted, nothing emerged, just a shy, silent nod as her heart beat loud and F.A. With tender care, he brought the tip of his hardness to her entrance, the fire between them igniting as their bodies came together. He stopped, tracing a thumb over her cheek, bringing both of them back to the moment. "I'm going in," he whispered against her lips, his voice low and smooth. Then he begins to push slowly into her and while looked at apprehensive Cynthia. "Don't be nervous. I am here." Cynthia nodded, attempting to steady her body as well as excited and nervous heart. Leon then brought his head near hers as he spoke. "Just concentrate on me." He then sealed her mouth with his own once more, slow and deep, as he started to thrust more forward, slowly, allowing her to feel every inch of him, every feeling carried in that one intimate touch. Cynthia closed her eyes and savored Leon's kiss as she felt his dick slowly penetrate her pussy. The sensation of him slowly opening her inside's wall was amazing and unforgettably enjoyable. She didn't want to break the kiss, so in between every kiss, she conveyed her joy to Leon. "I'm all yours now. I love you. So much." Leon continued to move slowly and ruptured her hymen as softly as he could while answering in between kisses. "I love you too, my dear. You are mine now, and so it shall be forever." Just the sensation of Leon's dick slowly slipping in her pussy caused Cynthia to desire to come. Nevertheless, she groaned even louder as she felt him withdraw and penetrate into her. Her pussy closed in on Leon's dick, so he retreated and trusted again into her, deeper and harder with every pass, opening up her inner walls that contracted again to close tighter around his dick. It's so nice and tight inside you, my dear." Leon also didn't suppress his moan as he continues to thrust his dick inside Cynthia's tight pussy. Cynthia's moan changed from muffled to loud as Leon kissed her and devastated her pussy. There were so much pleasures that Cynthia's mind began to blank out. Leon picked up the pace of his thrust within her. Cynthia was getting nearer and nearer to her breaking point, and naturally, she didn't wish for her pleasure to be over so soon. "Lo Lord, my love, please, slower. I will come if you keep so." Cynthia struggled to utter disjointed words between her moan and Leon's thrusts, which caused her body to shake. "You may come, sweetheart, don't hold back." Cynthia's body was pulled by Leon, and he knelt on the bed, her legs wrapped around his waist, thereby forming a lotus sex position. Cynthia began to use Leon's shoulders and legs as a prop to slide her ass up and down. He also assisted her in moving by lifting her around the waist and then placing her down on his dick in a very pleasurable motion for both of them, so he could move deep inside her. Pa, 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 pa. The sensual noise of Cynthia's ass slapping against Leon's pelvis made everyone hornier and hornier. "I feel it. I'm coming. It's, so good. My love. I'm coming on your dick." Cynthia loudly moaned as she started to come. Leon firmly held her by the waist against his pelvis while his dick was deep inside her and began to shot his cum inside her pussy. Cynthia rolled her eyes as she could feel the cum of Leon flowing inside her. She hugged him with the little energy remaining in her body and began aggressively kiss her. Cynthia's lips were paused on Leon's for almost 1 minute, her thoughts going drift in riptides of raw ecstasy. She shook and lingered after even the kiss faded, and was in her thoughts a blur, not a real or tangible sensation. It took several minutes merely for her to start putting herself together again. Leon moved slowly, his touch as gentle as it was powerful. He placed her on the soft bed, handling her like she was something delicate, fragile, but cherished. As he pulled out, his cock slipped out of her, his cum and her love juices started to drip out of her pussy. The fluid was slightly pink, due to Cynthia's blood. It testified to the depth of their union, her virginity, and the passion with which they both had enjoyed. They did not speak. Their labored breathing alone filled the space between them, gentle and hypnotic, harmonizing like their hearts had. The room was silent, moonlight pouring in through the window and gilding their sweat-drenched skin in silver. The smell of sex and heat lingered in the air, and their bodies still entwined in the aftermath. Leon stretched out next to her, his arm going out of habit and encircling her waist. Cynthia slipped into his arms without question, allowing his heat to envelop her like a protection from the world. His heartbeat thrummed beneath her cheek, solid and comforting. As she burrowed deeper into the bend of his arm, her fingers following the curve of his chest, her mind began to clear. Her eyes half closed, her legs still pulsing, her lips throbbing from his kisses. There was tenderness, yes, but it was sweet, like the pain left by something lovely. Fulfillment, trust, safety. So this is what it feels like, she thought, eyes half shut. To give yourself to someone you love, not merely your body, but your soul and heart also. To be taken completely and gently, and still feel that you are pieced together. She thinks in heart. Leon looked down at her, his golden eyes softer than she'd ever seen. He brushed her hair from her face, his fingers grazing her cheek. She's mine, he thought. All of her, and I'll never let her go. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, light, reverent, and felt her relax even more against him. Neither of them needed words now. Cynthia closed her eyes, allowing his touch to warm her. For the first time, she was exposed and yet safe, as if she had given him everything, but in his arms she felt totally guarded. She knew she belonged to him, and how he cradled her indicated he knew what that meant. Enfolded in his arms, fatigue from her first intimate experience swept over her like a soft wave. Her body was heavy and weary, her mind muddled with warmth and contentment. As sleep started to claim her, her heart overflowed with a feeling of tranquil contentment, the security of his arms calming her into serene sleep where nothing else existed. The love meter. Leon tossed and turned, remaining naked, the glow of their mutual desire dissipating on his body. The moonlit window cast silvery shadows across their bodies. His arm was wrapped around Cynthia's waist, holding her in closer, and his fingers playfully raked through her soft black hair, each hair caressed as if it were sacred. His gaze never wavered from her face, serene, flushed, lips parted slightly as she breathed. Her warm, soft breath danced against his bare chest with every exhale. He froze when he sensed the gentle rhythm of her breathing, his hand suspended mid-stroke. She's already asleep? He whispered to himself, blinking in quiet surprise. Then a gentle, low chuckle slipped from his lips, so he wouldn't wake her. One spin, and she's out cold, he whispered, a smile playing at his lips. He bent and laid a soft kiss at the crown of her head. So precious, he whispered, but when he shifted a little, his gaze trailed lower, down to his own body. His dick was still hard, proud, unaffected by her sleeping tranquility. Leon exhaled with a contorted smile. My unlimited energy, a blessing and a curse. His mind drifted back to the seconds leading up to Cynthia falling asleep. Her weak moans, her shaking body, the manner in which she held on to him with faith and abandon. It was her first time, and his own passion had exhausted her, left her completely drained. And still, despite his passion still ablaze, he hadn't proceeded further. Because she wasn't some kind of conquest. She was his woman, one of his jewels. Unlike the cruel men, Leon didn't want to break, conquer, or be rough. With the people he loved, he would never hurt a woman, especially his wife. Leon smirked as he glanced at his dick, the desire still present but overshadowed by a deeper affection. "Looks like I'll need to retire for the night," he murmured, his voice tinged with resignation. Just then, a memory surfaced, that moment of climax, when he released "Come Inside Her." A familiar chime had echoed in his mind. The system. Ding! His grin deepened. "Right. Let's see what you've got for me, my sweet system." Still holding Cynthia close with one arm around her waist, his other hand idly tracing her hair, he mentally commanded, "System, open mission status." A crisp ding rang in his mind, and a translucent blue screen shimmered into existence before his eyes, floating in midair, only visible to him. Ding! Mission triggered. Fuck Cynthia. Objective: make Cynthia completely yours. Reward: love meter unlocked, plus 70 black points. Warning: failure will disable touch of charm. Time limit: 18 days. Status: completed. Would you like to receive your rewards? Y/N. At once, another message scrolled across the screen. Ding! Congratulations, host. Breakthrough to Grandmaster Realm. Leon's eyes widened a fraction, his lips opening in a sharp breath. He could feel it, the thrumming energy coursing through every cell of his body, each one pounding with increased power. His muscles contracted, not in pain, but in anticipation. Two birds with one stone, he thought. Strength and love, both within reach. A smile pulled at the corner of Leon's mouth as he thought over how fast he had ascended to the Grandmaster realm. It had only taken him a month, to achieve what many spent their whole lifetime working towards. While others roamed the world, seeking treasures and honing their abilities, Leon used his special edge, his cheat, his system to climb to this echelon with breathtaking rapidity. He recalled the cost he'd paid when he arrived this world. When he first arrived in this world, he had willingly abandoned his Grandmaster cultivation to mend his crippled body. It was a wrenching sacrifice, one that left a heavy, lingering hollowness in his chest. The loss had been like part of him fading away, a sorrowful, hollow ache. But now he was standing at the same level once again, stronger but complete. Then his eyes returned to the reward board, eyes glittering with expectancy. His heartbeat quickened, the excitement of power and fulfillment twisting in his chest. He smiled faintly. Yes, he responded inwardly, serene but enthused. Within a moment, another message flashed in. Ding! Reward processing. Initiating transfer. Abruptly, fire lanced in Leon's golden irises, succeeded by a bright, piercing stab. He stiffened, muscles clenching, daring not to stir too much, lest he break Cynthia's peace in his embrace. His vision blurred, glowing, dim gold, unfamiliar. Ancient runes coalesced in his irises, spelling themselves into position as if writing itself anew from the very fiber of his essence. Tisich, not bad for the pain of the eye of the judge. He grunted between clenched teeth, his breathing shallow. Still hurts like hell. He survived. As always, with power came a price. The heat dissipated. A last chime resonated within his mind. Love meter successfully integrated into host's eyes. You may now see emotional metrics by looking at your target. Ding! New passive skill unlocked. Love meter. Leon's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. This'll come in handy, especially when I expand my harem, he murmured, amusement glinting in his golden eyes. As if responding to his thought, the air shimmered faintly, and with a soft chime, a translucent screen unfolded before him. Host information. Name: Leon Moonwalker. Age: 30. Cultivation realm: Grandmaster. Race: human. Talent: high. Level: 35. HP: 100 out of 100. STR: 44/100. AGL 41/100. VIT 46/100. STM Infinity. INT 59/100. DEF 42 out of 100. Blank points 184. Passive skills: Touch of Charm, Eye of Judge, Scent of Arousal, and Love Meter. Combat skill: Body Reinforcement, Voidbreaker Art, Falling Petal Dance Sword Art. Artifact: Divine Artifact of Balance, Swirling Chakra. Hera members: Rias Moonwalker, Arya, and Cynthia. Leon browsed through the stats with subdued pride. 310 points from the Silver Forest Hunts. He grumbled. Less 200 for those 2 beginner-grade spells. Ouch, but it was worth it. His gaze shifted to the bottom of the screen. 110 points left, plus 70 from a finished mission bonus, and 4 extra from sex with Cynthia. Not bad. A second later, the figure blinked, now 184. He did the calculation in his head, figuring up the blank points he'd still to spend. A nod of satisfaction followed, and then his eyes fell on his talent, and he went still. When he first came into this world, his talent had been woefully third grade, almost useless. But today, it was at a high level, far higher. But then a frown crossed his face as an odd hypothesis began to take shape in his thoughts. Could it be, if I sleep with a woman and cultivate, somehow it also augments my talent? The system interjected, as if he were reading his mind. Ding. Correct. Host's hypothesis. Experiencing intimacy with compatible people not only boosts host cultivation, but also builds up slowly. Host innate talent. Leon's lips twisted into a smirk, surprise and satisfaction spreading over him. As I thought, he immediately turned to another question, intrigue shining in his eyes. System, you once explained that if I assist a weaker partner, such as one of my wives, she would cultivate from me. Does that extend to talent as well? Another gentle chime. Ding. Correct, host. This is a dual-path approach, also referred to as dual cultivation. While host gains energy, cultivation, and talent from intimacy with stronger women, your partner, if of lower or similar cultivation, will also experience a boost in cultivation. Additionally, if a partner has lower talent, intimate contact with host will gradually elevate her potential, enhancing both her cultivation and abilities. Leon chuckled softly, a slow grin tugging at his lips as he nodded in thought. So, not only do I grow stronger, I get to raise the power of my women too. He leaned back a little, golden eyes glinting with new understanding. Fair enough. Power divided is power increased. A flutter of excitement trembled in his tone as he spoke softly. This could be very profitable indeed. As Leon leaned back contentedly, his eyes moved to Cynthia, the woman sleeping restfully against him, her breath quiet and deep. His eyes softened. Then, in a blink, he recalled something. Right, I haven't practiced my new skill yet. A curious smile spread across his face as he turned his gaze completely on her. Well then, Cynthia, let's see what your heart desires, my love. At his will, a soft shimmer flared before his eyes. Moments later, a glowing translucent screen materialized, suspended above her sleeping form, dainty, pulsating softly, as if bound to the cadence of her breathing. Target: Cynthia. Name: Cynthia. Age: 22. Cultivation: Grandmaster. Race: Human. Talent: High. HP: 100 out of 100. STR: 43 out of 100. AGL: 47/100. VIT: 45 out of 100. STM: 44 out of 100. INT: 37 out of 100. DEF: 46/100. Love meter: 100%. Absolute devotion detected. Leon's golden eyes remained glued to the status panel, the pulsating 100% under the love meter, keeping him transfixed like an unspoken promise. The voice of the system echoed in his mind, smooth and soothing. Ding! Host, the love meter reading is 100%. This means that the female has never betrayed you. and will remain loyal and devoted to you fully. Leon blinked, taking it all in. A flawless, unyielding loyalty. A devotion so absolute that no external influence, no temptation, could ever shatter it. A feeling of contentment enveloped him. But then a thought entered his mind. What about Arya, Rhys, Kyra, Syra? What were their love meter levels? Was their loyalty as unbreakable like hers? His thoughts flashed to Lillian, the adorable headmaid. Her playful but gentle demeanor had always fascinated him. What was her level? Excitement churned inside him as he considered the possibility of checking their readings. But he had not taken more than a step before the system reacted virtually instantaneously, as if it read his mind, its robotic voice interrupting his thoughts. Yes, host, you can also look at the love meter of others. However, you need to be within a 20-meter range of the target or maintain direct eye contact. Leon nodded considerately, a small smile pulling at his lips. I see. So, I have to be near them in order to read it correctly. He looked down at Cynthia again, her gentle breathing filling the silence of the room. The soft rise and fall of her chest caused his heart to hurt with tenderness. She seemed so serene, so beautiful, lying in his arms, naked, her soft body pressed lightly against his. Instinctively, his hand came out, tracing her raven hair as he reached for the bedsheet. Gently, he drew it up over both of them, covering them from the chill of the night air without waking her deep sleep. As he settled the sheets, he drew her closer, holding her tightly against him. Her body moved naturally, her small movements a silent testament to the great trust she had put in him. A gentle smile drew at Leon's lips as he bent down, leaving a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Good night, my priestess," he murmured, his voice softly inaudible above a breath. Cynthia stirred in sleep, her respirations slowing further as she pressed deeper into his arms, welcoming his presence with the utmost ease. Leon's chest filled with an overwhelming feeling of satisfaction. He shut his eyes, still grinning, and let the weight of the evening, the promise they now held, to settle upon him. As his own breathing eased, in harmony with Cynthia's, they both fell into a deep, undisturbed sleep. The evening passed in perfect silence. The room was still, except for the gentle cadence of their breathing. Moonlight caught on their bodies, and the aroma of closeness hung in the air. The world outside receded, became meaningless. In their mutual peace, the day was finished, and fantasy started. A dawn of intimacy. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains in gleaming golden silk, bathing the room in the warm glow. It softened gently across the bed, lighting the coils of limbs and silver-stamped skin that were stretched out together under the bedclothes. Leon moved first, golden eyes slowly opening to accommodate the light. His eyes went immediately to the woman who was huddled in his side, Cynthia. Her gentle breathing whispered against his bare chest, her dark lashes twitching very slightly as she slept. Her long black hair draped across his shoulder like a silken shawl, bits of it caught tenderly on his skin. His arm remained around her, hand hovering above her hips, and he didn't stir, didn't dare break the tranquility of this moment. Her leg was thrown over his skin to skin, and his other hand, fingers knotted loosely in her hair. For a long time, he just lay there, watching her sleep. Her mouth was slightly ajar, her breathing slow and even, her breasts rising with each breath. The sheet was long gone, exposing them completely to one another and to the morning. She was beautiful. His gaze wandered lower, appreciating the shape of her hip, the delicate love bruises running from her neck, across her breast, down her belly, and along her inner thigh, bruises made by him. He smiled gently, remembering last night, the way she had shivered in his arms, the way she had gazed at him when she surrendered body and soul. She's mine now, he told himself, a tender smile curving on his lips. He stroked a knuckle down her back, light as a feather, and sensed her move against him in reaction. Her inner thigh brushed gently against his groin, where his dick, refusing and ready, had come back in the warmth of dawn. He groaned deep in his throat. Even now, he cursed his endurance, though he had no qualms about last night's choice. He inched closer, brushing a light kiss across her temple, drawing in the loamy richness of her hair. She fluttered lightly awake, brow wrinkled as though fighting the claim of consciousness. "Morning, priestess," he whispered, his voice husky and bantering. Cynthia moved against him and made a soft noise, half sigh, half whimper, as she blinked up at him, dazed and endearingly confused. For an instant, her sleepy eyes didn't know where she was, or whose chest her cheek lay against. Then recognition flooded her face like a wave. A rosy blush spread over her cheeks. "Good morning, Lord," she whispered, voice still husky with sleep. Leon laughed, the low, teasing sound as he kissed her forehead. Wrong title, priestess," he whispered against her skin. Cynthia slowly opened her eyes, still half asleep. I didn't mean," she stuttered, her tone soft and bare as thick. He smiled warmly, a hint of teasing glint in his eyes as he stroked her cheek with the tip of his thumb. "I know," he breathed, his voice husky, "but you belong to me now, so just say husband, or Leon, or," his voice reduced to a whisper, "darling or hubby if you feel like being lovey-dovey or sassy." She squeaked, burying her face in his neck. "Dita, darling," she breathed in protest, but it was laced with flustered laughter. "I'll take that," he whispered, sliding his hand along her hips to pull her closer. Their skin pressed together fully now, her breasts against his chest, his arousal thick and hot between her soft folds. She emitted a soft, raspy moan, her body shaking. She froze, his erection prodding at her. Her breath hitched, a tiny hiss passing from her lips. Leon experienced it as well, a low gurr, escaping him as he feels her lips close around his cock. A smir played at his lips as rubbing slightly, just to see her shiver. A gentle stitch passed from her lips, her breathing unsteady. Still sensitive, he breathed, his voice barely audible, as she let out a soft, breathy moan. She nodded a small, shaking head against his neck. Her legs automatically pressed together, contracting his dick in their gentleness. "A little sore," she confessed, bashful. "But you like, right?" he teased, lips tracing her collarbone. "A bit sore." "Down there," she conceded, her voice hesitant and quiet, her cheeks a flush of deep pink as she cast her gaze to the side, embarrassed. "But you like it, don't you?" he whispered, his lips on the curve of her collarbone, his warm, lingering breath on her skin. Her reply came in rapid sequence, hasty and breathless. "Why, yes." She blinked at him, cheeks flushed, eyes wide with vulnerability and trust. Leon smiled knowingly, his eyes glinting with amusement, and then shifted slightly, leaning in. His lips landed on hers in a long, slow kiss, gentle to begin with, but with a hint of heat beneath. It was a tender kiss, but playful, with just a trace of mischief in the way his lips pressed against hers. As the kiss grew more intense, she responded eagerly, her hands moving to draw him closer, a soft hum of satisfaction escaping. She relaxed into the kiss, surrendering to the promise of passion and love. He at last drew back far enough to gaze at her, his smile growing wider. "Good," he whispered, a satisfied, teasing glint in his eyes. "I'm bringing you to the bath," he whispered, his voice deep and rumbling against her skin. "You need it, and I need it too, before we go to the capital." She blushed angrily, her heart pounding, but nodded in affirmation, a combination of excitement and nervousness rushing through her. Leon smiled softly as he pulled the sheet around her gently, scooping her into his arms with practiced ease. She gasped softly, clinging to his shoulders, their bodies flush as he stood. "Still flustered?" he teased, walking them through the suite toward the bath chamber. "You're carrying me naked," she said, hiding her face. "I've already seen every inch of you," he teased, standing with her wrapped in his arms. "Touched, kissed, even." "Stop," she laughed, burying her face in his neck. He chuckled, pleased with the reaction. Leon guided her into the warm, softly lit bath chamber, the air thick with steam and the scent of crushed herbs and rose petals. The water shimmered invitingly in the tub. With no hesitation, he got in, the two of them naked, already warmed by their own heat. He gently guided them both into the bath, his arms still wrapped around her as they leaned into the water's warmth. The curl of steam wreathed around them, enhancing the serenity of the moment. Her warm flesh caressed the cold water, and she breathed softly when it enveloped them. She sank into his hold, her arms going around the back of his neck as he leaned against the tub with his back, wrapping his arms tightly around her in his lap. "Feels so amazing," she breathed, her lips skimming his ear as she settled into him completely. "This feels amazing," she breathed, burrowing into the hollow of his neck. Leon's lips grazed her temple, a gentle smile curving his mouth. "No, you feel amazing." She flushed a little, heat rising in her chest. She shifted, and the silky underside of her thigh swept against his lengthened hardness elicited a dick. Her breath hitched. Her eyes came up, wide, questioning. "Still," she whispered, flushed cheeks. He looked into her eyes, a grin teasing at his lips. "You're sitting naked on me in a hot bath. What do you expect?" She laughed gently, but the sound weakened as his hand moved up the side of her, warm and slow. His palm covered her breast, thumb stroking over her nipple with slow deliberation. Her breathing caught, her back curving ever so slightly as her nipples reacted to his touch, contracting under the warmth of his palm. Leon gave a soft, slow squeeze, savoring the way her body reacted, how she melted into him, how her moans slipped out in a breathy, helpless sound, sweet and utter. "MMH, Leon." And yet, he murmured, letting his hand settle on her hip, possessive, but achingly gentle. "You're still here, naked, soaked, and draped over me. Haven't moved an inch from my arms." She smiled reluctantly, coming forward to kiss his jaw. "Because I don't want to." He laughed low in his throat, the vibration humming softly against her. His hands crept to her hips, hard but respectful, pushing her even closer until there was no room left between them. Her breath caught as his lips touched hers, just a gentle, passing kiss like a promise. Her arms tightened around his neck in return, holding on automatically. He smiled in her hair, his cheek against the wet strands. They held that way for a moment, bodies underwater, skin pressed against skin, the water's warmth churning lazily around them like a cocoon. At last, he picked up a tiny vial of oil and massaged her hair, his fingers tracing slow, gentle circles over her scalp. Cynthia released a soft moan, eyes drifting shut, her face relaxing into pure bliss. "You spoil me," she breathed. "Wives should be spoiled," he said, his voice gentle but unyielding, "especially ones who look this good naked." She laughed and gave him a playful splash to the chest. "Leon," he grinned, watching her flushed face with amusement. "So this is Cynthia now, blushing, bold, blooming. Not like Arya, who took her quiet time to unfold, or Rias, that natural-born seductress. Each so different, and yet all mine. I'm just being honest," he murmured, grabbing her wrist and placing a kiss to her palm. Their laughter dissolved into silence once more, easy, warm, with something deeper in it. She raised her face to him, eyes soft, mouth barely open. "Thank you. For last night. For being mine. For being gentle." He looked back at her, golden eyes shadowed by tenderness. "Thank you for trusting me for being mine." Their mouths touched again, slow, gentle. No hunger, no urgency. Just silent affection shared in a kiss that hung there like a sigh. Surrounded by the steam and the faint smell of herbs and rose petals, they wrapped each other in a world of their own. Whatever existed outside that bath did not matter. Only skin and warmth and breath. Later, Leon picked up the soaps and oils again, indulging. He washed her back with tender hands, letting the soap trail down her shoulder, then along the curve of her spine. His fingers drew across her sides, stroking the gentle curve of her breasts, before moving lower, across her belly, to the sensitive flesh of her inner thigh. His touch was slow, intentional and teasing, and she shivered, arching into his touch with a soft, breathy hum. A flush painted her cheeks as she leaned forward to take him with soap in her hand to come back. Her palms slid over his chest, up and over his shoulders, then slowly back down again in slow, circular motions. She circled her fingers languidly, smiling as he stiffened under her teasing touch, soft, reverent, but unmistakably bold. Leon's thoughts strayed to blacker things, caught on the slant of her waist, the way water droplets clung to her skin, and the pink flush of her cheeks. Each inch of her cried out for his attention, for him to possess her. He ached to draw her near, to whisper things that would send shivers down her back, to let the steam swirl with the heat between them. He pictured pushing her softly against the slippery rim of the tub, his mouth tracing the fragile curve of her neck, fingers tracing the softness of her form. The possibility of her, so near, so warm, awakened something wild within him. A hunger to ***************************************************************************************************************ck consumed by the bliss of mutual intimacy. The moment was delicate, too fragile, too intimate, too lovely, a delicacy he wasn't prepared to shatter. So they washed one another, hands seeking with soft, provocative touches, kisses given softly as the water splashed around them. Every touch was a promise unspoken, a waltz of intimacy where time stood still, and all that existed was the heat of their bodies against one another. The moment hung there, tender and charged, leaving them suspended in the silence they shared, savoring each other's presence in the warm light of the bath. Holding nothing but a towel, Cynthia moved quietly out of the bath chamber. The cotton stuck damply against her pale skin, molded to the rounds of her breasts and hips, barely covering the top of her thighs. Dark hair curled in wet waves down her back, shining as drops crawled along the curve of her spine. Her cheeks were still rosy, her lips pinked from kisses, and her dark eyes were deep with warmth and lingering shyness. Leon trailed directly behind her, water still beating across his chest. A white towel rode low on his hips, the material doing little to hide the curves of his well-defined abdomen or the sharp curves of his V-line. His damp, bed-tousled black hair curled at the ends, framing a wild, just-woken face that only enhanced his already deadly attractiveness. The warmth of the bath clung to their bodies, so every breath between them was heavy with intimacy. They halted in the bedroom, both of them frozen midway through a step, the room they had exited before bathing, where previously there was only disarray, the sheets in knots, pillows thrown about, and the air thick with body fluid smell. Now seemed it had never known a night of passionate love. The bed was freshly made, the bloodied linens removed, set aside in favor of new ones of a rich sapphire. The stench of morning sweat and sex had disappeared, replaced by the gentle, calming scent of lavender and rose. Cynthia opened and closed her eyes in shocked silence. When did? Leon exhaled a low chuckle, tension melting from his shoulders as a knowing smile twisted his lips. Arya, he replied with affectionate amusement, shaking his head infinitesimally. Naturally, it was her, always one step ahead. He assumed Arya slipped in when they bathed, quietly restoring the order of the room. She was always this way, gentle, caring, ever looking out for those she loves. She must have known what a night he and Cynthia had had, the state the room was left in, and she had restored it room, as if none of that ever existed. Cynthia's eyes widened as his words sunk in. Her mouth opened a little, a high-pitched little eep, managing to escape before her lips snapped back together. Her hands jerked up to grasp the edge of her towel more tightly. Her cheeks flushed a deep red, spreading rapidly down her neck. Oh no, she saw the room condition, her heart racing. Did Arya hear the room that way? Wait, didn't she enter when I was in the bathroom with him? Did she overhear her moans? Her mind was suddenly taken back to the sound of her own voice as he touched her. What if Arya overheard it? She bit her lip, embarrassed. She must think I'm shameless. So shameless, so bold. Cynthia's knees locked, embarrassment crawling over her skin. What must she think of me now? Leon looked at her when she didn't answer. She stood there, eyes unfocused, lips just slightly parted. Her face was a stormy silence, eyebrows flinching, cheeks reddening by the second, a flash of embarrassment melting in a flustered panic and then into a soft haze. Her mind was obviously spinning, and it was etched all over her face. He couldn't help the amused smile on his lips. Moving closer, he playfully pinched her warm cheek. "You're cute when you're embarrassed," he whispered low and teasing. "Ah, Leon," she squeaked in surprise, rubbing her cheek in a pout. She looked up at him, eyes wide and sparkling with teasing annoyance. He grinned shamelessly. "Let's dress, my adorable wifey," he teased further, "or we'll be late for our trip. Wifey." She breathed, her face aflame. The title curled around her heart, causing it to falter. Flustered still, she nodded hastily, embracing the flutter in her chest as a secret she couldn't quite keep. Just as she was going to chase after him, her eyes went wide. Realization swept in like a cold wave. "Wait," she gasped within, fear pouring in. "I didn't pack anything. I didn't pack anything to his room." Her skin went white, then red, even harder. Leon, who was still in the vicinity, saw her stuck in her spot and turned, smiling. He raised an eyebrow. "Now what, my cutie?" "HH," she stuttered, voice almost inaudible. "I didn't wear any clothes." His golden eyes sparkled with playfulness. In one fluid motion, he advanced closer and took both hands to the sides of her face. Her breath caught as he leaned closer, eyes fixing on hers. Her black eyes blinked, wide and confused. What?" "I'm just making sure," he said with pretended gravity, looking directly into her eyes. "If your eyesight has failed you, sweetheart." What do you mean?" she squeaked, totally flummoxed. Leon's mouth twisted in a theatrically amused smile. "TSK. Already losing things right before your eyes, honey." Cynthia blinked, totally bewildered. "Why?" Without saying a word, Leon leaned slightly to the side, providing her with a better view as he tilted his head in a relaxed direction toward the bed. Her eyes followed, and her jaw fell slightly. Spread out neatly on the edge of the sheets were two piles of clothing, one obviously his, and the other quite obviously hers. "How? Who brought my clothes here?" she muttered, her eyes wide and blinking in incredulity. Then it clicked. "Wait, Arya. It has to be her." Leon noticed the flash of comprehension in her eyes and replied with a knowing smile. "Arya," he said, looking at her with a smug little grin. "She probably figured you'd forget to bring a change before sneaking off to me." "She knew?" Cynthia asked, her voice jumping a pitch as her face flared red again. "How would she even?" Leon chuckled as he walked past her. "Because," he said with a grin over his shoulder, "I've been stuck in this exact situation before with her. My first wife, or my daughter, Rias, after the morning following our unforgettable first night together." Cynthia's cheeks went darker, richer pink. His first wife, Rias. Arya. She felt the names whispering gently in her brain. Her lips parted, but remained silent. She just nodded, flushed cheeks, warm heart. He did think ahead. "For me." Then Leon clapped his hands once. "Now, dress up, darling, before we late for our journey." And with practiced ease, he walked to the bed. Then, without the slightest hesitation, dropped his towel. Cynthia made a tiny choking sound. "I'm not surviving this morning." Absolutely not. Her breath hitched as she took in the sight before her. He was naked. Gloriously, shamelessly naked. Yes, she had seen him naked, touched him there, but something about him standing there, so casually confident in daylight, made her cheeks flush. Her gaze tracked the curve of his chiseled torso, the taper of his waist, the subtle play of muscles as he shifted, and the undeniable hardness between her legs. She knew that body, yet it was still new, still took her breath away every time. He caught her looking and gave a soft, teasing grin, but said nothing. Instead, he turned away from the bed and reached for his golden black robe. First, he put on the pants, the silk flowing over his legs, hugging just so. Cynthia watched every motion as if she were viewing a live show. Then there was the robe, gliding easily over his wet skin, the material draping over his wide shoulders and chest. The gold threads embroidered in his clothes glimmered faintly in contrast with the black robe as he tied the ribbon at his waist with a seemingly effortless elegance. The robe fell around him like a king preparing for court, effortless and infuriatingly handsome. Then, as if from out of nowhere, he spoke. "Priestess," he said smoothly, looking at her with a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. She didn't say anything, still stuck somewhere in between gaping and screaming internally. He smiled. "Priestess," he said again, this time stretching the word out a bit further, tone heavy with amusement. She blinked, shaking off her daze like a class student who had dozed off during class. Yes. I mean, what?" she stuttered, flushing bright red. Leon smiled too, far too amused. "Get dressed, darling. Or are you expecting someone else to come along and catch us like this?" "And no," she squeaked, practically tripping over herself as she hurried to the bed. With shaking hands, Cynthia unwrapped the towel, her cheeks flushed as she let it fall. Leon's gaze followed to her naked body, her full and plump, pink-tipped breasts rising and falling gently with her breath, the waist narrowing to expansive hips, the fragile folds between her legs a gentle flush of pink. She was stunning, lovely in her vulnerability and pride. She sensed his eyes, strong and filled with wonder. A rush of heat climbed to her cheeks, but she straightened, no longer covering or concealing herself. Having pride in the influence she had over him, she knew the man she loved cherished her body profoundly. A sense of warmth spread in her heart, a gentle hope to stay by his side for all eternity, although a timid uncertainty still existed beneath her smile. She slowly raised the black lace bra, the dainty fabric gliding over her arms, caressing her lovely breast as she fastened it tightly around her chest. The intricate lace followed the rise of her breasts, cradling them softly but firmly, a hidden hug only for him. Then she slid her identical panties down her legs with a slow, sensual movement. Leon's eyes tracked every inch, the path the silky fabric moved down past her thighs, exposing the soft pink underneath. When she bent a little, light danced across the smooth contours of her body, and with one last, teasing motion, she brought the panties back up, hiding her gorgeous pussy in smooth black lace. She slowly raised the gown, the silky white material draping down her head like a sigh. The blue embroidery fluttered in the light as she pulled the gown over her shoulders and arms, smoothing it over her skin with careful hands. The material slipped easily, cupping her curves before falling smoothly around her legs with each movement. Leon did not take his eyes off of her, soaking in the beautiful elegance of every movement, relishing the soft beauty revealed before him. When she finally faced him, Leon's eyes grew warm. "You look stunning, my wifey," he whispered softly, his tone low and filled with warmth. She blushed with embarrassment but smiled demurely. "You too, who husband? You always do," she said softly. They walked together towards the mirror, brushing and styling their hair with soft, practiced ease. And finally, hands clasped and smiling gently at one another, they left the room behind and emerged into the corridor, their shadows bathed in the warm, golden light filtering through the big windows. But as they made the turn, a small figure suddenly bumped into Leon out of nowhere. There was a sharp thump dash, sound echo as something dropped to the ground, followed by an adorable, feminine ouch that broke the silence. Breakfast with beauties. Just as Leon and Cynthia rounded the corner of the polished marble hallway, their steps light and casual, a small figure suddenly bumped into Leon. Thump! Leon staggered slightly, a surprised breath escaping him as a tingling jolt spread through his chest where the impact landed. "Ouch!" came a small, feminine voice, soft and unexpectedly sweet. Instinctively, Leon brought a hand to his chest, rubbing the spot. His brows knit in surprise, curiosity rising, as he glanced down to see who had bumped into him. On the floor sat a small girl with brown, tousled, short hair. She had on a neat black and white uniform of maid, but Leon knew her at once. It was Lillian, the headmaid. Her cheeks were reddened from the crash, and she sat rubbing the side of her head with both hands, her eyes shut, a little pout on her lips as she winced adorably. "Who placed a pillar here?" The girl muttered dazedly, apparently not knowing what, or rather, whom, she had bumped into. Leon's lips quivered at her remark. Cynthia quickly placed her hand over her mouth, best efforts to not laugh. "A pillar, eh?" Leon spoke softly, amusement dancing in his eyes. The maid stopped, rubbing mid-sentence, her head cocked slightly as the voice reached her ears. She slowly raised her head to see the two persons standing over her, and her face turned red the moment she saw them. Lord Leon, Lady Cynthia," she stuttered, eyes wide with shock. Her face flushed a bright red. She quickly rose to her feet, but in her agitated hurry, while attempting to regain her balance, her feet turned awkwardly, and she almost fell for the second time. For an instant, Lillian closed her eyes tight, terror creeping at the possibility of falling again. But before she could fall on the ground, Leon's arms coiled around her waist, holding her firm as he gently steadied her shaking form. "Careful," he whispered low, his voice a gentle caress along her ear. Lillian clamped her eyes shut, her racing heart thudding in her chest. She opened them slowly, hesitantly, and her eyes met his. Those golden eyes, so near, so gentle, drew her in. Her breath stuck in her throat, her chest heaving with a wild, desperate rhythm. "Aya, Lord," she whispered, her voice shaking with a combination of shock and shyness. Panic fluttered within her as she involuntarily attempted to pull away, but the soft firmness of his grip anchored her down. Leon's lips formed a soft smile as he saw her flushed face and clumsy struggle. Then, gently, he placed her properly on her feet. As Lillian gradually edged away from his hold, she stepped a few uncertain steps back, her own movements shy and hesitant. The maid cast down her eyes, nervously twisting the apron fabric between her fingers. Her cheeks flushed deeper to an even richer red, a betrayal of the fluttering nervousness within. As her mind reeled within her, "He held me." A jolt thudded against her chest, her heart racing wildly. Lord Leon actually wrapped me in his arms. Sideways, sweet Cynthia's eyes darted back and forth between the two of them, a gentle laugh escaping her. In her heart, she recalled a time when she was standing in Lillian's shoes, taken aback and completely flummoxed by the gentle charm of Lord Leon. A soft heat flushed through her heart at the recollection. Leon remained silent, but his own smile grew wider as his gaze caught Lillian's rosy face. He observed the exquisite flush spread over her cheeks, the nervous fingering of her apron strings, and experienced a deep and hidden affection rise up within him. Cynthia's smile faltered as she saw the poor girl visibly sink deeper into blushes before Leon's stare. At this rate, she thought to herself, the girl would die of embarrassment. She cleared her throat softly to break the moment. "Lillian," the maid's eyes flew up, wide and exposed. Her voice was no more than a whisper, shaking as she said, "Why, yes. La Lady Cy Cynthia?" Cynthia's smile relaxed. "Why are you loitering around here? Shouldn't you be tending to your responsibilities?" Leon did not answer, but a curious spark shone in his golden eyes. He, too, was curious about what led the agitated maid to this place. Lillian swallowed tightly, attempting to soothe the turbulent tempest in her chest. Her voice was gentle and tentative, each phrase laced with a slight vibration. Lady Arya asked me to summon both of you for breakfast. Lady Arya, as well as Lady Syra and Lady Kyra, is already seated at the table. She paused briefly, her eyes flickering nervously between Leon and Cynthia. A faint blush crept back into her cheeks, as if she knew exactly why they'd taken so long to arrive. "Since it's been a while," she continued, her voice dropping lower, "Lady Arya asked me to find you. Before breakfast gets cold." Leon's smile grew, a flash of soft amusement and something warmer in his eyes. "Ah, then we simply shouldn't be keeping them waiting, should we?" Cynthia smiled obediently, but inside, a soft smile curled on her mouth. We really did take our time. Her cheeks flushed with a light blush as her eyes darted to Leon, who strode ahead, unaware. No wonder Arya sent this adorable little maid to call us. Leon, not noticing Cynthia's look or her silent amusement. Leon moved forward, his gait smooth and relaxed. Cynthia trailed closely behind, but after a few paces, he slowed, then stopped altogether. Feeling something, Leon turned slightly, his gaze focusing on Lillian. She stood frozen, in a trance, her large eyes far away and unseeing. A soft smile played at Leon's lips as he said softly, "My headmaid, aren't you joining us?" At the sound of his voice, Lillian's gaze snapped back, breath hitching at the familiar, comforting tone. "My headmaid?" The words echoed in her mind, deepening the blush on her face. Quickly, she gathered herself and stammered, "I am sorry, my lord. After you." Her voice trembled, cheeks burning fiercely. Leon laughed quietly, nodded, and began walking. From beside him, Cynthia's soft whisper floated over, always teasing the poor girls. He didn't say anything, just favored her with an amused, side-glance smile. Cynthia picked up on that smile and simply shook her head with a fond sigh. The three of them proceeded down the hallway to the dining room, Lillian lagging behind, still reeling from the event. Upon entering the grand dining room, Leon slid open the doors of dining room with ease. A warm breeze met them, filled with the welcoming scent of baked bread and sweet fruit. Leon caught sight of sunlight streaming through the high windows, illuminating the room with a soft golden glow that rested over the gleaming wooden table. A new arrangement of bread, ripe fruit, and hot tea rested enticingly in front of them. Arya sat on the left side of the table, elegant as ever in her white and purple dress, her long purple locks spilling down over her shoulders. Her violet gaze rose to greet theirs. Right across from her on the right, side by side, were the twin sisters. Syra had shiny golden robes, and Kyra had dark forest green robes. They had the same green hair flowing down their backsides, and they automatically locked their emerald eyes on Leon and Cynthia. Cynthia braced herself a little under the critical eyes of the three women, their glares unflinching and piercing. She could sense the gravity of their silent judgment weighing upon her, tightening her shoulders. But Leon walked into the room with his typical easy confidence, already flashing a wide smile as he went to stand at the head of the table. He fell into his chair as if it were the most natural thing in the world, the heat of his eyes filling the room instantly. "Good morning, my beauties," he said, his voice friendly and teasing. Arya smiled back as naturally, her eyes sparkling. "Good morning, darling." Syra and Kyra shared a swift glance, their cheeks turning a pale pink. The instant he referred to them as "my beauties" and cast that brilliant smile at them, both of them felt a leap of shyness. They spoke almost in complete harmony, their heads bowing slightly in a shy curtsy. "Good morning, Lord." They breathed softly, their voices barely audible. Leon's smile grew, obviously relishing the moment. There was an easy, affectionate hum in the room that made it seem full of life as the morning progressed. But Cynthia, still abashed from the earlier stare of the three women, lingered uncertainly at the door. Her gaze sank to the floor, and a delicate flush crept gradually across her cheeks. Leon swung around to face her, his golden eyes aglow with interest. A sly, amused smile pulled at his lips as he lifted an eyebrow in a teasing gesture. Arya and the twins turned to look, their eyes focusing on Cynthia's blushing, demure form. Arya laughed softly, a warm flush rising to her own cheeks as she recalled how she, too, had flushed thus after her initial night with Leon. Syra and Kyra looked at each other inquiringly. Cynthia? They silently wondered. Always calm, always on top of things. Cynthia blushing like this. Calm Cynthia da flustered? Syra whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Kyra nodded softly in agreement, equally surprised. Arya's lips twitched into a gentle smile as she heard the twins' soft muttering. Then, in a gentle voice, she spoke, Cynthia, and patted the seat beside her. Come on, let's eat breakfast. Cynthia came out of her trance and paused, then nodded awkwardly and stepped aside. Why, yes, Lady Arya, she whispered, her cheeks still flushed pink. As Cynthia took her seat next to her, she looked up at Arya with a small, thankful smile. Thank you for inviting me to sit with you, she whispered, her voice a trifle shaky. Arya smiled at her softly, a knowing smile. She extended a brief touch, running a hand over Cynthia's arm in silent reassurance before gently shaking her head and releasing a light laugh from her lips. No more of that formality, dear, she replied, her tone teasing but warm. And don't address me as lady either. Cynthia stared at her, taken aback, confusion flashing in her eyes. Arya's smile grew even wider. You're my husband's wife now. Just call me Sister Arya. Cynthia's lips parted slightly, words stuck in her throat. After a moment, she nodded shyly. As sister. Arya, she whispered, still flushing. Much better. Arya grinned, violet eyes sparkling with mischief. And then she leaned in just a tiny bit, her tone dropping to a mischievous murmur. Tell me, did you have fun yesterday? With my darling? Cynthia's eyes widened. The flush on her face deepened at once, bursting like wildfire across her cheeks. At the table across from her, Kyra hastily faced away, cheeks aglow, clearly embarrassed. Next to her, Syra couldn't help but grin, eyes sparkling with mirth at her sister's embarrassment and Cynthia's. Leon, however, remained silent. He just kept on savoring the juicy fruit on his plate, completely serene, though his eyes would dart up every now and again to monitor the scene with quiet amusement. Why? Cynthia stuttered, utterly flummoxed, her voice nothing more than a whisper. Arya's gentle laughter chimed through the air, intercepting Cynthia mid-sentence. I'll take that as a yes, she teased, her eyes sparkling with delight as Cynthia's blush deepened still further. Suddenly, Syra leaned slightly forward, her emerald eyes glinting with mischief as she turned her attention to Leon. Her voice was soft, but carried a bold edge, wrapped in a sly smile. Lord, she said in a sweet voice, stretching it out just long enough to catch Kyra's eye in alarm and send Cynthia and Arya shifting their attention away from her. Lord, she said softly, stretching the word just so that Kyra would shoot her a look of alarm, and Cynthia and Arya switched their gaze from her. Leon regarded her. Yes, dear. She looked down demurely. Now that Cynthia is your woman, then when will you claim me, or Kyra, too? Leon blinked in shock. Syra's cheeks reddened as she added softly, we want to serve you, too. A shocked hush. Then, chop. Kyra playfully slapped Syra's head, her face already ablaze. What are you saying, Syra? And why are you involving me in this? Syra massaged the back of her head, frowning. What? Don't pretend like you don't want the same. Leon arched an eyebrow, and Arya eyed him with amusement. Cynthia, still reeling from her earlier embarrassment, blinked in astonishment at Syra's cheekiness, giving herself a momentary lapse into forgetfulness of her own mortification. Syra moved closer, her eyes glinting at her twin. If you don't even want to be Lord Leon's mistress, then tell me so aloud. Kyra opened her mouth, then froze. Nothing came out. Her lips moved, but her voice betrayed her. Slowly, she turned her head away, cheeks glowing brighter than ever. See, Cyrus said smugly. I knew it. So why pretend you're shy now? Kyra's head whipped back toward her, flustered. Syra, she started, pointing an accusatory finger. But before she could finish, Leon raised a hand, his voice calm and gentle. Easy, both of you. Leon shifted to face Syra, a slow, conscious smile spreading across his lips. He leaned forward slightly, golden eyes clashing with hers, steady, unhurried, and thick with unmistakable promise. For your question, dear, he whispered, his voice low and honey-smooth, you and your sister will both be moaning beneath me very soon. Just a little patience. Syra's breathing caught. Her cheeks erupted into a bright blush, but she didn't glance away. Instead, a tiny, exhilarated smile twisted her lips. At her side, Kyra's eyes grew wide as her face flushed a deep red, fingers fluttering nervously in her lap. Arya and Cynthia shared a look. Then both smiled quietly at the twins' flush of embarrassment. Arya's mischief flashed in her eyes as she shook her head affectionately. "Okay," Arya murmured, chuckling softly, her tone filled with gentle authority. "Flirting's enough for now. Eat breakfast before it cools off." Her tone was a soft ending to the teasing, and all seemed to unwind simultaneously. The twins shared one last look, Cyrus still smirking, Kyra attempting to conceal red cheeks, before they nodded. Leon smiled slightly and resumed eating with his fork, while Cynthia smiled shyly, still flushing but clearing. At the table, they all nodded in agreement, the atmosphere light with heat and soft laughter as they finally turned to the meal. The group looked to their plates, the air light but filled with unspoken joy. Rain, Lillian stood quietly behind Leon, hands folded tightly in front of her. A residual blush still colored her cheeks as she listened to the banter. She stood like a ghost on one side of the room, invisible to the others. As their banter reached her ears, a warm murmur moved within her heart. Will I ever be able to stand alongside him like that? Or do I even stand a chance to become his woman? A tender flutter grew inside of her, tenuous but brilliant. She cast her eyes downward, concealing a blushing smile while breakfast went on around her. The courtyard of the Moonwalker mansion glowed with the warm, mid-morning sunshine. Light poured down like soft fire, heating the ground and filling the entire garden with a gentle, ethereal sheen. A warm breeze blew carefree through the open area, bringing the sweet fragrance of unfurling lilies, jasmine, and wild roses. The flower scent hung in the air as perfume, soothing, refined, ageless. Each bush and flower bed seemed neatly trimmed, as though to meet the sun's kind kiss. Marigolds and tulips and silver-leafed vines spilled down walls and pathways, and stands of white daffodils tall and proud bent gently in the warmth of the sun. Butterflies danced merrily from bloom to bloom, bursts of color blowing like living confetti in the air of summer. Birds sang softly from under ivy arches, finishing the picture of peaceful paradise. But the quiet didn't last. Clack! The large, ornate gate of the mansion swung open, shattering the peaceful quiet. Out of the shadows of the corridor, Leon emerged into the sunlight, his gold eyes shining in the light like molten lava. Alongside him moved Arya, stately in white and purple, her purple hair billowing like silk. Cynthia, serene yet striking, preceded his right, while the twin sisters Syra and Kyra bracketed them on either side like sun-kissed mirrors, Syra in gold, Kyra in emerald. Lillian, the shy head maid, followed discreetly behind. Behind them came a procession of housemaids, at least 15, each of them outfitted in fresh-made uniforms, their heads slightly lowered, lips twisted in soft, sorrowful smiles that spoke volumes. A fluttering of the hems of their skirts and the dainty bowing of their hands lent an air of dignified beauty to the moment. Not stopping in the courtyard, the procession marched steadily towards the main gate of the estate, the purposeful and unhesitant steps of their approach. And as they arrived at the estate's main gate, Leon's golden eyes rose and rested on the beautiful view in front of him. There, mounted at the front, was an imposing carriage, slender and stately in form, painted a shining silver with delicate blue highlights that caught the eye like strands of silk. It was enormous, high-roofed, and long enough to accommodate 6 to 7 comfortably. Gilded runes shimmered softly along its flanks, magical for haste and fluid journeying. Strap-tied at the leading carriage were 4 stunning white horses, each comfortably larger than average magical beast horse. Their manes glowed softly, and wise silver-blue eyes watched the environment quietly. These wind-steed-bred horses were celebrated in all 5 great independent kingdoms. Able to learn human language and remember routes on a single trip, They did not require a coachman for the ride. So great was Winsteed's genius. This breed only reserved for high nobility. These magical beast horses were living symbols of prestige, wealth, and noble blood, animals of elegance and intelligence, respected throughout kingdoms as the pride of aristocratic lineage. Leon's eyes glanced over the opulent carriage to the sight behind it, where there was a full contingent of guards standing in wordless formation, 50 sleek warriors. Their polished silver armor shone in the sun, not a speck of dent or buckle missing. Every warrior stood tall alongside their own mount. Ordinary magical creatures, strong and steady. Straight backs, eyes ahead, their faces were chiseled from granite, radiating discipline and pride. An aura of purpose surrounded them. Their silence was not hollow, it was a promise. A bulwark of loyalty and power, unspoken but irrefutable. As Leon stepped up with the ladies on either side, the guards dipped in one efficient motion, the voices echoing together. "Welcome to our lord. Our ladies." The guards sang back in impeccable unison, the voices deep and ringing, like steel clashing with stone. The seriousness of their devotion resonated in the morning air. Before them stood Captain Black, an experienced fighter attired in darker, magical armor bordered with dark blue trim. He too bowed low. Leon greeted their bow with a peaceful, sonorous smile. His voice held steadfast authority as he spoke. "Greetings, my obedient subordinates. Stand up straight." When the guards upright themselves, Leon surveyed the formation, sharp and vigilant. Leon sighed inwardly as his mind wandered. "Cynthia and I both at Grandmaster level. Danger can hardly reach us. In these 5 great independent kingdoms, who would be able to hurt me and my crew without guards? The number would be in the single digits. But now, as Leon was about to officially go to the capital to attend the ceremony, the Duke needs to appear as a Duke. Alone, if I go to the capital, nobles will think me weak for a Duke, and the nobility's tongues are much keener than any sword. He pondered this till the clinking of boots on gravel shook him out of it. Black advanced. "My lord, all is ready for your departure." Leon smiled, nodding, shaking off his reverie. Black turned smoothly, making a discreet hand gesture toward the group of guards standing at attention. From the ranks, one guard advanced, a young man with sharp, firm eyes and an upright, confident stance. His presence had a quiet strength, as if he was prepared for whatever was coming. "Lord Leon," Black said, "this is the Duke's journey to the capital, Part 2. Black wheeled smoothly, executing a subtle hand movement toward the cluster of guards standing at attention. One guard emerged from the ranks, a youth with piercing, firm eyes and an upright, confident stride. His bearing had a quiet strength, as if he were prepared for anything that was to come. "Lord Leon," replied Black, "this is Vice Captain Johnny. I've appointed him to be in charge of the guard of the estate and the security of the Moonwalker domain when we leave, heading to the capital." Leon's gaze settled on Johnny, a flash of awareness crossing his countenance before he nodded approvingly. Leon did recognize him, one of Black's students. The boy had matured into a dependable officer, now serving as vice captain, one rank lower than Black. If Black trusted him, that was good enough. Leon nodded curtly, his voice steady and unshakable. "Then I entrust the safety of my dukedom to you." Without hesitation, Johnny went down on one knee and bowed low. "It will be safeguarded with my life, my lord. I promise it." Leon's eyes rested on him for a moment before he nodded back, quiet approval in his eyes. His gaze wandered beyond the guards, to the unmoving group of maids. At their center stood Lillian, stiff in her stance, but her eyes fixed intently on him. Her fingers curled restlessly in front of her apron, betraying the composure she attempted to maintain. Leon's smile gentled, warmth and something akin to fond amusement gleaming in his eyes. "Lillian," he said, his voice soft and warm. She jerked her head up, surprised, her breath trapped. "Why, yes, lord." There was a teasing tilt to the corner of his mouth as he finished. "Come here." Her heart was racing wildly, her cheeks flushing with hot awareness. She swallowed, steadying herself, then nodded. Taking hesitant strides, she moved forward until she was standing right before him, shaking between terror and something unspoken. Her eyes darted up quickly, startled, then fell hurriedly again as doubt filled her. Leon's eyes had a mischievous twinkle, with amusement softening his face. He raised one hand slowly, not drawing attention to himself. Between his fingers shone a flash of golden light, and out of the air coalesced a lovely golden-yellow hairpin with the form of a blooming rose. Its center worked with a transparent amber gemstone that glowed like the dawn. A murmur ran through the adjacent maids, but Lillian, too agitated, failed to notice. Leon leaned forward slowly, placing the pin in her loose brown locks as he smoothed wayward strands back with gentle care. It wasn't until she felt his fingers warm against her hair that Lillian jerked back, looking up in surprise. "Echa," she breathed, confusion dawning in her wide, hazel honey eyes. Her hand went up automatically, stroking the slender pin hidden behind her hair. Her eyes flickered, disbelieving what she sensed. Leon created a tiny mirror of water that floated between them, showing her own face back. "It suits you," he whispered, his warm smile curling his lips. Lillian went rigid, mouth opening slightly, a flush spreading deeply across her cheeks as her body became as stiff as a statue. Her words came out in a hesitant, quivering whisper. "Be but, Lord." She was interrupted before she could speak on. Leon lifted a soothing hand, his eyes already aware of what she had been about to say. "No, but," he said softly, "it is only a gift from me. You should take it." He smiled once more, the golden glow of the hairpin reflecting the light in the room. "It's one of the 4 I purchased yesterday at the market." From behind, Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra all exchanged merry smiles. No one of them evidenced even the slightest jealousy. After all, they had already been given their presents beforehand. Their own hairpins shone brightly in their hair, evidence of Leon's grace. But behind Lillian, all the maids looked Lillian over with wistful envy, their gazes darting between the radiating rosebud and their own nape-skinned heads. Their looks shifted to Leon with sulky faces, as though quietly thinking that one got something while they just had to stand there and look. Leon observed it all. He smiled to himself silently, well aware that each maid in the house had some hidden love for him. And why should they not? A strong, good-looking man with noble blood in Galvia was a catch any woman would wish to win. Internally, he grumbled with a smile. "Even if I wanted to, I could sleep with all the maids within this estate. None would complain." The idea caused him to chuckle lowly, but he shelved it and refocused on the flustered Lillian, who was still trying to find words. "Thank, why you, Lord, for the gift," she stuttered, lowering her head demurely. Leon smiled warmly, his hand gliding gently through her hair, his touch soft and soothing. Leon's smile softened, the edges of his mouth creasing with quiet warmth. "Take care of my mansion while I'm gone. And take care of yourself, too," he said softly, his eyes resting on Lillian briefly before turning his head a little toward the others. And with a teasing sparkle in his eye, he added, "And you all, look after the house. And yourselves. And don't forget your headmaid." Lillian's breath was caught in her throat. Her face reddened an even deeper color, but she was not alone in blushing. Nearly all of the maids looked down, faces burning pink as they bowed as one. "Don't worry, we will, Lord." They bowed as one, and their voice filled with both pride and affection. Leon nodded once more, a gentle smile still playing on his lips. He then went to Johnny, his expression relaxing somewhat. Still warm, though. He looked directly at Johnny. "Keep my territory safe," he declared, tapping his hand strongly on the shoulder of Johnny and patted his shoulder strongly. Johnny straightened, looking shocked for an instant. Nobody had anticipated it. In the traditions of Galvia, a noble's hand on a soldier's shoulder was unusual. It was more than a movement. It was an indication of a profound trust. In the upper circles of nobility, a lord to pat a soldier's shoulder was unusual and significant. It said everything without having to say one additional word. Johnny's eyes sparkled with unspoken resolve. He raised a clenched fist to his chest and bowed low. "Without fail, my lord. Travel without worry." Leon nodded once more, his face set in a look of contented faith. A glint of pride danced secretly in his eyes. And then he turned to the four women standing serenely behind him: Arya, Cynthia, Kyra, and Syra. "Let's go," he said in a flat voice. Leon walked toward the waiting carriage, his pace slow, deliberate. Black had already crossed and moved forward, swinging open the carriage door with a sharp movement. Not a word was spoken as Leon entered first. Arya, Cynthia, Syra, and Kyra followed one at a time, their steps elegant and calculated. The carriage's interior was nothing less than regal. Midnight blue, plush velvet cushions covered the seats, the walls paneled in dark wood inlaid with filigree gold. Gentle charms vibrated in the air, retaining heat, absorbing jolts from the road, and dampening external sound. It was not just a carriage, it was a rolling refuge, spacious enough for five to ride, nap, or even sleep in comfort. The door closed softly with a click. Outside, Black mounted his steed with liquid ease. The escort guards followed, clustering into a protective diamond shape around the carriage. On a signal, the wind-steed beasts, magnificent animals with lean, muscular bodies and feathered hooves, struck forward. The carriage started to move, smooth and quiet across the cobblestone street. As the wheels revolved for the first time, the courtyard resounded to the echo of their movement. Each guard and each maid, Johnny and Lillian among them, bowed low in perfect synchrony. Their voices called out in unison, strong and thunderous. "We wish you a safe journey, Lord." The air shook with the strength of their voices, ringing out through the courtyard like a boastful vow. But the carriage did not decelerate. It rolled steadily onward, led by the metronomic rattle of hooves and the unhurrying discipline of the guard formation. Only when the gilded vehicle moved beyond the massive outer gates and was lost to sight did the bowed heads start to rise. Lillian did not move. Her eyes lingered on the road well after the carriage had disappeared from view, as if attempting to catch a final glimpse. Her cheeks retained a soft pink flush. Her fingers rose slowly, touching lightly the fragile hairpin that rested in her hair, caressing it gently, as if attempting to commit the shape, the texture, the feel of the hand that had left it there to memory. This is Lord Leon's first gift to me, she thought, her heart racing dementedly in her chest. "I will hold this more dear than life itself." The words lingered in her heart, unsaid, yet charged with meaning. And then she turned, addressing the other maids who stood behind her. "Come," she said softly, her voice firmer than she was. "We have work to do." Without hesitation, she headed toward the mansion. Maids glanced at each other. Remnants of envy still glimmered softly in their eyes, but no ill will. For they had lived together in the estate like sisters, bearing and sharing sorrows and joys as well. Quiet smiles and wordless understanding accompanied them inside, the light steps and the hearts that gradually settled. Not far from the fleeing maids, Johnny watched, his eyes focused on the disappearing dust behind the retreating carriage. His jaw clenched, not in concern, but in serious pride. Then he spun around. "Both of you," he shouted, voice slicing through the courtyard like a knife, "back to your stations. Keep alert. Our Lord placed this house in our care." Without hesitation, every man moved. There was no talk, no hesitation, only the creak of armor and boots marching with a purpose. A silent fire smoldered in their chests. This was their duty. This was their honor. Johnny stayed for a moment longer, looking up at the empty sky where the last sparkle of the carriage roof had disappeared beyond the trees. His fingers briefly formed a fist over his chest. "You entrusted us with your trust, Lord Leon. I promise, not a single stone will ever fall while you're away." And so, the estate came to rest. Life returned to movement. But in the hearts of those behind, a flame had been ignited. The wind changed, and far along the road, with the world before him and the responsibility of a dukedom on his shoulders, Leon's odyssey to the capital began, not as a lad born to power, but as a man prepared to take it. What lay at the far end of that road? Glory, treason, war, or love? None could yet determine. But the game had started. Indulgence in carriage. The ground stretched far across in a blue sky without end, the horizon a fluid line where the sky kissed the ground. Gentle grasses capered in the breeze in an open field that radiated in shades of green and gold. Clumps of wildflowers covered the meadow, lavender, daisies, bluebells, swaying in the breeze, whispering secrets only the wind might hear. Tangles of saplings crackled, their leaves dancing in the wind like mischievous secrets, as stately old oaks remained unmoving, like watchful sentinels. Glimpses of amber light filtered through their limbs, illuminating the earth in soft, mottled radiance. Here and there, tiny magical creatures wandered unencumbered, gentle-furred monsters with great ears and tiny antlers, radiant winged rabbits that trailed starry paths, floating spheres that glowed with soft light, bobbing like nosy ghosts. Some rolled over in the grass, others slept under trees, their tranquility undisturbed. The world was at peace, until that peace was shattered. Abruptly, the ground shuddered once, subtly, almost imperceptibly. The magical creatures hesitated in place. Heads lifted, ears pricked, grass rippled abnormally. Then the shudder hit again, this time with greater force. A low, distant roar rumbled across the grasslands. On the horizon far away, something glinted in sunlight, a flash of silver blue steel. And then came the noise, hooves pounding. The sky vibrated as the complete picture emerged. One immense silver caravan thundering along the open road. At the lead, a column of silver-clad riders on great horses, lances shining, armor bright as the mirror's face. Their training was apparent in every coordinated step. At the heart of this magnificent procession rolled a dazzling carriage painted in glittering silver blue, its panels inscribed with magical runes, and drawn by 4 regal wind steeds, their white hides radiating faintly in the light of the sun. Their hooves touched the ground but faintly, yet each movement felt like land-shaking drumbeats from the heavens. This was no run-of-the-mill caravan. This was the Silver City Duke. This was Leon Moonwalker. As the caravan rode through the peaceful glade, which was once so serene, the enchanted beasts began to scatter like the petals of flowers before the wind, their gentle harmony shivered by the noble thunder. The earth shook with the tread of honor and strength. But within the carriage, however, a different world existed altogether. But within the carriage itself, a universe apart existed. Soft floral aromas blended with dainty magic spells that numbed the external turmoil. Velvety soft cushions, golden stitching, and soft lighting spells soaked the interior in a calm radiance, an unbroken quiet that was unscathed by the tempest raging outside. Leon reclined at ease on a velvet cushion in the middle, back loose, eyes serene but glittering with a mirthful glint. To his right, Syra leaned against him, her green locks glimmering and cheeks flushed. A golden-colored dress clad her, matching the color of her smile. Her fingers fidgeted with the rim of his sleeve in nervousness, her body pressed against his side, cheek against his chest as he slowly wrapped his right hand around her waist. On his left, Kyra had on an exquisite dark green robe, her head dropped and eyes lowered. But her rosy cheeks betrayed the turmoil within. Her heart pounded and hands shook slightly, even though Leon's arm was wrapped around her waist, holding her tight. Across from them, Cynthia and Arya reclined on soft velvet pillows, smirking smiles pulling at their lips as they observed Leon and the twins. Arya reclined elegantly with her legs crossed, chin on hand, mischief sparkling in her eyes. Cynthia's teasing eye darted back and forth between the sisters, her smile twisting into a sly, flirtatious grin that promised shared secrets. It all started when Leon suggested something bold. As the wheels of the caravan creaked into gear beyond the gates of Silver City, Leon sat back against the plush velvet cushions, a wicked, slow smile skimming the edges of his lips. Ladies, he started, smooth as silk and with a thread of playful charm woven through the words. Wouldn't this trip be so much more pleasurable if you all took turns keeping me company? Properly, of course, close, comfortable, maybe even cuddled up next to me. His golden eyes sparkled as he delivered the last word like a dare. Arya was the first to laugh, tossing her hair over one shoulder. Rotating like royal favorites? Darling, how delightfully wicked of you. She gave Cynthia a sly nudge. Naturally, we'll take the first shift. Perks of seniority, after all. Cynthia merely smiled in agreement. The others had agreed. The term set, 4 hours per pair, no exceptions. Now, while underway and with the Silver City spires receding from view behind them, it was at last Kyra and Syra's turn. The two maidens moved down beside Leon, hearts aflutter as they went to share his cozy hold for the first time. And this way both find themselves in Leon's arms. From the other side of the carriage, Arya smiled, her eyes glinting with mischief. You know, she teased, this rotation business? Genius plan, sweetheart. She looked at the twins. Just look at them, blushing like heroines in a ballad. Although by the look of those pink cheeks, I have a pretty good idea who's getting more out of it. Cynthia smiled sweetly at Arya's jesting, a gentle curve rising to her lips. She moved forward, interest glinting in her shining eyes. Well then, Kyra, she asked warmly, how was it? First time all snug in our Lord's arms like that. Tell me the truth. Syra smiled warmly, nuzzling her face into Leon's shoulder. It's hot. Really quite nice and rather comforting, she said, a playful grin playing on her lips. Honestly, I'm liking it better than I thought I would. It's becoming addictive. I don't know if I want to relinquish my turn. Kyra looked away, nibbling her lip, her cheeks flush with a soft rose. Her lips parted in speaking, but nothing was said. She dropped her eyes, quiet and demure, the flush growing deeper on her face. Leon overheard the soft murmurs of all their remarks, a faint smile curling on his lips. He saw how Kyra would look away, her cheeks flushing with a rosy blush. That vulnerable shyness kindled a teasing warmth in him. He gradually shifted his head, raising an amused brow as his gaze locked into hers. Kyra, he growled low and silky. Don't you enjoy being in my arms? Kyra froze for a moment, her breath hitching as her mouth fell open. But the words became stuck within her throat, and all that was able to escape was a soft, fluttering whisper. It's not like that, my lord. Leon's smile grew even bigger, leaning over softly, chin passing over the soft green tangles of her hair, the action slow and earthy. So, then what is it like, dear? He asked softly, voice warm and playful. Her hands grasped the lapels of her robe, as if to balance. The closeness, the voice, the silence within the carriage, it was all overwhelming. A burning flush rose over her cheeks, eyes falling shut for the briefest moment. Then, on a shaken breath that shook lightly with feeling, she admitted, I like it in your arms. Leon's smile grew even deeper, a soft warmth spreading in his chest. Not only from the sincerity of Kyra, but also from the unvarnished, honeyed vulnerability she presented him. In this quiet, the world seemed to contract to just the pair of them, cocooned in silence and gentle breath. Then, a dramatic sigh sliced through the quiet, like a pebble splashed into still water. My lord, Syra exclaimed, her voice laced with mock outrage, but eyes gleaming with something softer beneath. You're being terribly unfair. Leon turned toward her, only to find a full dramatic pout waiting. Her lips pursed just so, her brows drawn in exaggerated protest. But in her gaze, there was a flicker of something deeper, warmth tinged with a hint of longing. You're playing favorites, she accused, folding her arms as she burrowed just a little closer into the curve of his side. Here I am, sitting obediently in your arms, and yet all your sweet words are for her. Her tone was feigned scolding, but her face glowed with unmistakable mischief. Leon's gentle laughter ruffled the air. He looked from one to the other. Kyra, all flushed and still. Syra, bold but blushing under her bluff. His smile warmed. He turned to Syra, voice soft but sarcastic. You really believe I'd have the courage to choose between the two of you? Syra nodded, eyebrows slanted in mock suspicion. Leon bent forward, voice falling to a taunting whisper. But I love you both equally, don't I? And then, with an innocent glint in his eye, he added, I make sure my love is fair to all of you, because each of you holds a special place in my heart. His words seemed to linger in the air, resonating with the two sisters as well as with the other two women who had already experienced his playfulness. Kyra's blush heightened, spreading like overripe tomatoes over her cheeks. She held her sleeves close, words stuck in her throat, too shy to speak, while Syra let out a soft gasp, torn between flattered and shocked, her eyes twinkling with a mixture of surprise and joy. Leon picked up on the flash of feeling flashing across both sisters' faces, the modest blush spreading on Kyra's cheeks, the teasing glint in Syra's eyes. A sly smile spreading over his face, he softly cinched his arms around their waists. Squeak! The twins emitted identical little squeaks of astonishment, their faces flushing hot with embarrassment and mirth, suspended somewhere between giggles and mortification. But then, very quickly, Syra leaned forward, her eyes aglow with a combination of bravery and nervousness. Before anyone could do anything, she touched her lips to Leon's in a brief, hesitant kiss, a soft, fumbling touch. For a single heartbeat, the carriage was silent as stone. All eyes shot back and forth between them. Leon blinked in shock, his face a combination of humor and curiosity. Syra at once withdrew, cheeks aflame with bright crimson. I kissed the Lord, she breathed inside, her voice shaking, her heart pounding so hard it seemed as though everyone could hear. Kyra's breath trapped. Syra, what? What just happened? She stuttered, half stunned, half incredulous. Syra grinned up at her sister, a shy, victorious smile playing on her lips. I win, Kyra, she whispered. I kissed him first, with flush heating her cheeks. Kyra was taken aback, her mouth opening and closing as if she were a surprised bird. A moment of silence fell over the carriage before soft laughter welled up. Aria's brow shot up, mirth dancing in her eyes. Well, you're braver than I imagined, Syra. Cynthia grinned knowingly. I knew you had that cheekiness. But that cheeky? I did not think it of you, Syra. Leon's lips curled into a warm smile as he gazed at Syra, the small flame of courage still burning brightly in her eyes. His voice lowered to a gentle whisper, playful but affectionate. My dear Syra, he spoke softly. Syra's cheeks flushed deeper at the tender way he spoke her name, a blend of embarrassment and pride flickering across her face. She glanced sideways at Leon, her eyes sparkling with mischief and something softer beneath. That was adorable, he continued with a warm smile. But, if you're asking, that wasn't quite a kiss. Syra blinked, surprised. Huh? He released Kyra's waist and leaned closer. Let me show you, he whispered softly. Placing a gentle touch on Syra's chin, he directed her eyes to connect with his. Her breath caught in her throat as he gradually bridged the gap between them. Their lips touched gently at first, warm, exploratory, and then, with slow, careful intent, he pressed his lips gently into hers, tracing the shape of her top lip with his tongue, a slow, seductive lap that sent a shiver down her spine. Syra reacted instinctively, opening her lips further to invite him in, her own tongue lightly tracing the curve of his lower lip. The kiss deepened, rhythmic and intimate, each stroke teaching her how to follow, how to give and take. She shivered under his caress, lips clumsy but hungry, meeting him every step of his gradual exploration. When they eventually broke apart, a strand of saliva held them together. Syra's cheeks burned a deep red as Leon leaned in close to her ear, soft smile playing on his lips. Now that is a kiss, my love, he breathed tenderly. She cradled her hot face against his chest with a startled squeak, her heart racing wildly. Throughout the carriage, Arya and Cynthia shared quick looks at each other, a wry envy shining behind their eyes. Both having been kissed by Leon in the past, they well understood how seductive and addictive his kisses were, and while they yearned for his touch now, neither felt willing to say so. After all, neither of them wanted to spoil the moment between Leon and Syra. Kyra sat transfixed, amazed at Syra's audacity. Her lips parted in a wordless protest, but nothing was said. A flush spread up her cheeks, darkening with each beat of her heart. She looked away, burning cheeks, not only from shame, but from a confusing combination of envy and admiration. Her sister is so bold, so certain of what she desires, Kyra thought, so close to Leon. Jealousy's spark flared within her. She wished to be so fearless, so intimate with Leon. She was lost in her mind, and Kyra hardly noticed until a gentle hand lay across her waist. Taken aback, she stiffened, a soft, reflexive squeak crossing her lips. It took her a moment to move before Leon's hand slipped an inch tighter, pulling her over his lap with firm reassurance. Her breath caught, suspended between shock and a bashful excitement as his arm drew her in, holding her tight. Lord, she whispered, her voice shaking. Leon smiled gently, sweeping a wandering lock of hair from her face, his eyes warm and perceptive. Tell me, dear, would you like a kiss too? Kyra's eyes went wide, the flush deepening on her cheeks. She opened her lips, heart racing wildly, speechless, but speechless no longer able to resist the desire rising within her. Then I'll assume that's a yes, Leon whispered, leaning down very slowly toward her. The world came to a crawl. Kyra's eyelids fluttered shut, heart racing in eager anticipation. Thud! The carriage lurched, halt. The motion was slight, but abrupt. Everyone on board blinked, snapped back to awareness. Leon's face narrowed. Kyra jumped hastily from his lap, all blush fading into keen attention. Across from them, Arya and Cynthia sat up straight in a flash, their playful complacency giving way to intense concentration. Syra's easy humor disappeared, back stiffening, lips compressing into a thin line. Then, a knock at the door. Rap, rap, rap. Lord Leon, firm but respectful. The voice belonged to Captain Black. Leon's golden eyes narrowed. He rose without a word, the movement fluid and commanding. His coat billowed out as he flung open the door. Cold wind swept in, stripping the cabin of its warmth. He descended onto the road, boots crunching gravel. The tranquility of the journey was at an end. Something lay ahead. Twilight hunt. Then, a knock at the door. Rap, rap, rap. Lord Leon. The voice was commanding but polite, Captain Black's. Leon's golden eyes flashed with subdued watchfulness. Without pause, he stood up, glided across to the door. Arya's hand dropped to her side automatically. Cynthia stiffened, halfway out of her chair already. Syra and Kyra glanced at each other hastily. Leon threw open the carriage door. His coat billowed in the evening wind and spread out behind him like a banner. He moved out into. Outside, the environment was not normal, serene. No shouting, no guns drawn, just calm. All the guards had already descended from their horses. They stood stiffly in neat lines in front of the carriage, their faces grave under their helmets. The horses had been saddled off and tied up in the immediate vicinity. Leon's keen eye ran over the well-drilled ranks, his mind actually racing to comprehend the abrupt standstill. Behind him, the carriage door opened a second time. Arya, Cynthia, Syra, and Kyra emerged one after another, each wearing his own bewildered expression. They glanced between the guards and the horizon's deepening shadows. Intrigue and confusion danced on their face. Leon's stance never altered. Serene, unfazed, Captain Black rushed forward, bending low. My lord, pardon the abrupt halt in travel, but this issue necessitates your presence. Leon looked at him calmly. Speak. We've reached the edge of Green Grove Forest, Black said, his tone low but insistent. As you can imagine, the forest is dangerous during nightfall. The sun is almost on the horizon, and the golden light is already starting to disappear. We concluded that it would be safer to set camp here before going deeper. Leon looked up, feeling the final warm rays of sunlight slipping under the trees. The sky was a dissolving canvas of gold and gentle purples. A quiet nod was his sole response. "Very well," he said, voice firm. "Start setting up camp." Black bowed his head respectfully. "Yes, my lord." Leon turned around, stepping back into the carriage. The women entered behind him, the door sliding softly shut as last Kyra entered inside carriage. For an interminable moment, there was silence. The abrupt tension on the street hadn't quite dissipated yet. Each heartbeat sounded loud against the stillness. Then, abruptly, Leon's lips curled into a smile, and then he burst out laughing, a rich, spontaneous sound which filled the carriage. Ha! 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 The laughter exploded out of Leon, abrupt and contagious. The way the carriage came to an instant halt, and that thump, he gasped for air between heaves, holding his sides. For a moment, I really thought we were the ones being attacked. Arya met his eyes, her eyes sparkling with mirth. Her lips curled into a teasing smile. "I thought so too," she replied, reclining in mock seriousness. I already had my mind picturing some epic, heroic combat scene. Cynthia released a breathy laugh. "Lord, I had my hand on my sword before I even knew it, expectant of some mystery, danger approaching." Syra grinned from ear to ear. "Honestly, I was on a toss Kyra to whatever danger was waiting out there and run." Kyra blinked, wide-eyed, taken aback by her sister's teasing. She spoke softly, almost hesitantly. "You were going to throw me?" she asked, her cheeks flushing as she glanced from Syra to the others, her voice barely above a whisper. Syra laughed louder, waving a hand. "Because you were nearest the door, Kyra." Strategic move. Kyra shook her head minutely, a small smile pulling at her mouth despite herself. "You're awful, Syra," she whispered, but there was affection in her tone. Leon's laugh swelled again, richer this time, warm and contagious. He sat back, still chuckling. "Guess we were all a little too self-absorbed," he replied, a winking glint in his golden eyes. "Didn't even realize how much time had slipped by outside." "Guess we were. A little preoccupied." Arya inched closer, the look in her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Or perhaps you are the distraction," she smiled. Cynthia arched an eyebrow, her smile broadening. "Right. Are you the one distracting us? Or are we hopelessly easy to distract?" Syra laughed, eyes shining with amusement. "Oh, no question about it. Our Lord is the greatest distraction of all." Kyra looked down with a discreet smile, once nodding, the blush in her cheeks. Leon raised his hands in mock defeat, his smile never wavering. "Guilty as charged." He glanced about the carriage, his face relaxing with real warmth. "But no fair. I was distracted as well. By all of you." That snapped the final strand of tension. The carriage erupted in laughter once more, Arya's musical and wry, Cynthia's deep and deadpan, Syra's high-pitched giggle, and Kyra's soft, breathed sound, quieter but just as real. Leon's thundering laugh enveloped them all like a fire being lit. At that moment, safe and in each other's company, the world outside seemed a long way off. When their laughter died, the gaze of Leon wandered to the shadowy forest outside the carriage windows. His smile remained, but his thoughts had already drifted. Then, a thrill of excitement stirred far beneath him. If we're this close to Green Grove Forest, then magical creatures won't be too far behind. And if that's the case, then this is my opportunity. If I can hunt them, I'll earn some blank points. And I received little sparring too in bonus. Clearing his throat, he faced the group again, his tone light, but with a hint of purpose. "My beauties, since we're stopped here, why not make use of the time? A little hunt before nightfall." The air in the carriage shifted, as, for pairs of eyes locked onto him. Curious, cautious, intrigued. Arya's brow furrowed. "A hunt? Now? The sun's nearly gone." Her tone is full of confusion. Leon grinned, unshakable. "Exactly. Twilight's still ours. A little bit of light training before night really sets in. And apart from that, I haven't trained seriously in days. This is the ideal opportunity." Cynthia leaned her chin on her hand, weighing. "It could do us some good, actually. Sharpen us up. Syra clapped her hands together lightly, her voice rising with enthusiasm. It sounds like fun. Kyra faltered, eyes lowering. You're certain it's safe? Her gentle voice was laced with concern. Leon's smile grew more gentle, but his eyes shone with determination. Don't be concerned. I'll protect us. Aria's face lit up. Okay, let's make it AH. His sleeve was caught by her. Wait, darling, she said, the sparkle of mischief in her eyes. He glanced over at her, interested. I have an idea to spice up this hunt. Aria's eyes sparkled mischievously. Let's make a game. While hunting, we'll gather precious herbs and rare fruits. Whoever collects the most valuable or useful wins. Leon raised a brow, amusement flickering in his eyes. And the prize? He asked. A teasing grin curved Aria's lip. The winner gets to spend the night beside you. Obviously, cuddling you. Cynthia's eyes gleamed with competitive fire. Syra's cheeks flushed, but her smile was fierce. Even Kyra's quiet gaze held newfound determination. Leon chuckled. Now this will be interesting. Then, with a mock serious tone, he throwing his hands up dramatically. And what about me? Arya grinned. You're officially excused from the competition, dear. After all, the prize doesn't get to compete. So yes, you're safe. Leon's smile turned mischievous. Oh, then I'm but a humble servant, ready to follow your instructions, my lady. The women burst into laughter, the tension melting away like morning mist. Leon moved toward the carriage door and pulled it open. Together, they stepped outside into the busy camp. Guards moving swiftly to set up tents and unpack supplies from their magical storage rings. Leon was going to say something else when Captain Black came up, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. My lord, he bowed respectfully. The camp is almost in position. Would you consider resting in the carriage for now? Leon raised one hand in a gentle motion to forestall him. Thank you, Captain, but I have other plans. I'm going hunting with my women. Black's face set in a grim line. My lord, the sun is almost set. As soon as night falls, the forest grows unpredictable, deadly. With respect, I must firmly advise against going out on night. Leon stood his ground, meeting his gaze with steady determination. Captain Black, do you question my wisdom or my endurance? Black was wincing, even more clearly conflicted. His jaw clenched as he bent his head. Never, my lord. I act solely out of concern for your safety. Leon's expression softened just a bit. And I'm grateful, but I have a handle on this. And you have Cynthia and I are both realm grandmaster cultivators. Areas at peak master realm. Syra and Kyra are good masters. We could take whatever is out there. Black's jaw clenched, then unclenched. His shoulders slumped just a little under the burden of unspoken concern. Then at least let me send an escort, he spoke low. 5 of our best. Just in case. Leon paused for a moment, then nodded once. Very well, but tell them, no interference unless absolutely necessary. Black nodded crisply and turned sharply. At the nod of his head, 5 of his top guards emerged from the camp perimeter. They closed in a flawless formation, silent, swift, already in position. They all dropped to one knee before Leon at the same time. It is our privilege to escort you, my lord. The lead guard spoke, bowing deeply with the others. Leon's eyes roamed over them. His smile was thin but determined. Stay sharp, he said, voice steady. Then, with a slight pause, he added, firmer this time, but do not intervene. Not unless absolutely necessary. The lead guard nodded. Understood, my lord. He stepped ahead, his coat sweeping the air behind him. The others trailed after, their dark outlines stretching long in the final rays of sunlight. The line of green grove forest loomed in front, tall, ancient trees that bridged like sentinels, their tight canopy casting the still-present golden rays into soft, dancing patterns on the forest floor. There was a stillness that fell over the group as they stepped into the tree line. The air of the forest was cooler here, heavy with the smell of moss and far-off water. Shadows collected at the trunk's bases. A low, guttural howl came from somewhere far away. Leon let out a slow breath, golden eyes going tight. Time to earn some blank points. The moment the thought occurred to him, a crystalline chime sounded within his mind, a sound he alone could hear. Ding! Quest panel update. Teamwork mode activated. Leon blinked as the sudden system message caught him off guard. He brought up the system prompt hastily, intrigued. What is teamwork mode? Host can register team members. When any member slays a magical beast, the host earns corresponding blank points. Leon's eyes sparkled. So if one of them slays a beast, I get the points as well? Yes. Leon smiled expansively. That's amazing. How do I recruit team members? Just remember their names while planning to include them in your team. Leon shut his eyes for an instant, calling out mentally, Cynthia, Arya, Syra, Kyra, and the guards? He thought. You can also include unknown members by simply thinking of them as escort team members collectively. Heeding the prompt, he included all 5 guards. Team members registered successfully. Leader, Leon Moonwalker. Members, Arya, Cynthia, Syra, Kyra, 5 elite guards. Leon's smile widened. This hunt just got a lot more interesting. A hand came down on his shoulder rather abruptly. He turned to see the 4 women and 5 guards looking at him. They were smiling, ranging from amused to curious, and the unspoken question hung between them. Arya cocked her eyebrow, regarding him sideways. What in the world are you thinking, darling? She teased, her tone playful, although her eyes tracked his glance toward the deepening woods. Leon laughed softly, shaking his head slowly. Fresh air, and the finest company a fellow might desire, he said, the twinkle in his golden eyes betraying their amusement. But under the carefree smile, his thoughts were elsewhere, concentrated. This hunt is going to prove more rewarding than he initially assumes. Leon stood motionless at the edge of the forest, his gaze following the lines of the great trees that stretched into the fading sunlight. The air was cool, full of the soft rustle of leaves and the rich smell of pine and moss. It was a tranquil moment, yet his thoughts strayed far beyond the idyllic scene before him. Thoughts danced like shadows, flitting between the here and now and the possibilities that lay concealed deeper in the woods. A gentle touch on his shoulder pulled him back. Arya's voice, warm and threaded with teasing interest, cut through his daze. Darling, what are you dreaming about? Leon blinked, then smiled weakly as he returned her gaze, just appreciating the fresh air and the loveliness of this wood. His eyes twinkled with mirth, and, naturally, the company. Arya's cheeks flushed a delicate shade of pink. She rolled her deep purple eyes, though the smile tugging at her lips betrayed her amusement. Always quick with a teasing excuse, aren't you? Syra chuckled from beside her, her light laughter threading through the trees. My lord, enough with the daydreaming. We got a hunt to begin. Leon nodded, the temporary daze clearing as he shook his head. He shifted towards the nearby elite guards. Their features were deferential but wary, eyes keen as they observed each movement of his. You 5, Leon stated, his tone slicing through the silence like a knife, as he pointed toward the thick path turning off to the right. Go that way. Look for anything worth having, precious herbs, fruits, anything that would be considered treasure. The forest waited round them, stillness under the susurration of leaves above. Golden threads of evening orange sunlight filtered down through the canopy, catching in motes of dust like imprisoned stars. The guards tensed. Armor creaked with a susurration of metal as their eyes darted from the darkened track to each other and to Leon. One advanced, his voice uncertain. My lord, with respect, he started, bending his head. It's our duty to keep you safe. And the ladies? Leon's face didn't waver, but his eyes grew harder. Controlled, serene, hazardous in its calm. I know, but as your lord, I expect obedience, he said, tone low and measured. Aren't that what your duty requires? The words fell like flint. The guard paused, jaw clenched as he glanced to his friends, asking for reassurance or perhaps permission. Yes, my lord, he reiterated, softer this time. But if something were to happen to you, Leon cut in with a gentle laugh. It wasn't cruel, but it had the force of sheer certainty. He moved closer, the slightest smirk playing upon his lips. If I required protection, he replied. "I would not be standing here issuing orders. And don't forget that I'm stronger than all of you." His words were not boastful. They rang like a first-ever spoken truth. The guard gulped. A fair peak novice realm, he was a far distance from Leon Grandmaster realm. A realm he could hardly hope for, Grandmaster realm and novice realm as alike as heaven and ERTG, two entire realms apart. The silence was heavy with tension like fog. Then gradually the guard deepened his bow, his voice now firm. "As you wish, my lord." Leon nodded his head in approval, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Oh, and one more thing," he added, looking down the path as a chilly breeze moved through the pine-scented air. "For each precious herb or fruit you discover, there will be a personal reward, ranked by its value. Consider it an incentive." That earned their complete attention. Sparks flared in weary eyes. Hesitation became purpose. "Understood, my lord," they replied together. No more questions, no more doubt. In instants, they disappeared into the woods, their bodies engulfed by leaves and gloom. Arya moved into the space before them, arms crossed, the corner of a smile playing on her lips. "You do love giving speeches, don't you?" Leon smiled softly, voice as silky as silk. "Only when I am among those I prefer not to keep too close." The ladies laughed softly, their laughter blending with the rustle of leaves shaken by the caress of a breeze. Cynthia leaned on her staff, the crescent moon at the top glinting in a stray sunbeam. She gave Leon a sidelong smile. That, or husband just likes to hear his own voice ringing through the trees. Leon faced him, a slow, smiling curve spreading across his face. He theatrically makes a hurt look, brow rising the merest fraction. "My women always undermine my authority so openly." Arya smiled, "Only to keep you humble." Leon's eyes swept over them. Arya's sharp smile, Cynthia's amused glint, Syra's cheerful grin, and Kyra's quiet confidence look. He laughed again, deeper this time, something rich and warm underlying the sound. Then, with a slow, winsome smile, his eyes encountering each of theirs, as his grin growing wider in good-natured challenge, he announced, "Now that the added eyes are disappeared, my beauties, let the true competition among you start." Arya's calm beauty was not ruffled, but her eyes glittered with quiet resolve. With a poised inclination of the head, she said softly, her voice silky and steady, "I'm ready." Cynthia, unruffled as always, permitted a small, self-assured smile to play upon her mouth. Her eyes narrowed, measuring the task at hand. She leaned forward purposefully, as if preparing herself mentally for a battle of wits. Let the best win. Syra's cheerful nature shone brightly, her grin wide and infectious. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she bounced lightly on the balls of her feet, eager to prove herself. 1 hour to shine, and I'm going to use every second to win. Kyra's calm and serene demeanor hid a burning competitive nature. She nodded measured, confident, her gaze firm and unflinching. Her wordless silence said more than any words. "This competition ends with my victory." Leon's eyes sparkled with real enthusiasm as he surveyed their ready composure. The sun hung low on the horizon, leaking warm gold into the darkening indigo sky. He looked up and then down at them, voice steady tone. "The sun's going to set below the horizon. We've got about an hour before night. I want you all back here by then. Stay alert and stay safe." The 4 women smiled warmly and sincerely at him and moved forward one at a time, their eyes locking onto his. Arya's voice was soft and gentle. "Take care of yourself as well, my sweetheart." Cynthia's composed smile was firm and comforting. "Stay out of trouble, husband." Syra's bright smile paled with genuine worry. "We'll have your back as much as you have ours, Lord." Kyra's quiet strength shone through in her calm voice. "Return whole, my lord. We expect nothing less." Leon's heart warmed at their soft concern. Though powerful beyond measure, only Cynthia could rival his strength. The others were beneath him, yet their worry enveloped him in comfort like the love of a mortal. He felt no annoyance, only great affection for their devotion. He bowed his head with a soft smile and said, "I will." All the women replied with a nod of their own, their strong gestures mirroring mutual determination. Then, as shadows disappearing between trees, they dissolved into the woods, ready to win. Leon exhaled slowly as he observed his women disappear into the woods, their bodies engulfed by darkness. A moment of quiet passed, then the flash of heat in his chest, not only from their devotion, but from growing excitement of the hunt. Clearing his thoughts, Leon smiled weakly and headed into the forest. Taking a different path, he walked into the deepening woods, where fading light created flickering shadows and the air vibrated with moss, wet soil, and old magic. Time to accumulate some blank points, he whispered, voice low but firm. No sooner had he moved a few paces into forest than suddenly rustled in front of him. Leon's muscles stiffened, his senses immediately heightened. Out of the darkness burst a creature, a night fawn. Its glossy black fur seemed to glow in the half-darkness, eyes blazing with hunter's intelligence. Venom dripped from its claws, and it moved in a blur of speed. Leon's lips twisted into a sure smile. He focused, gathering energy within him, sensing the power coursing through his veins like fire. He breathed softly, and the Voidbreaker art sprang into action, his body vibrating with brute force. "Let's start," he whispered. The Night Fong attacked, snapping razor-sharp claws towards his heart. But Leon was quicker. With a deafening punch, his fist struck with accuracy squarely in the creature's chest. The beast fell like a stone, a whispered hiss escaping its lips. Leon's eyes widened ever so slightly in amazement at the power of his punch. "Guess my strength has increased," he acknowledged softly, with a touch of pride infusing his voice. A soft hum vibrated within his head, little more than a murmur, yet something he couldn't help but pay attention to. Ding! Quest update. Novice Realm Beast beaten. 5 blank points rewarded. No sooner had Leon moved a few paces into the wood than a hasty rustle shattered the quiet. He tensed his muscles, his senses snapping into hard clarity. Out of the darkness sprang a Night Fong. Its gunmetal black fur glinted in the waning light, eyes aglow with hard intelligence. Venom dripped from its claws, its movements a blur of killing finesse. Leon curled his lips into a triumphant smile. He took a steady breath, drawing energy in, feeling it surge like wildfire through his system. Breathing softly, he triggered the Voidbreaker art, raw, pulsing energy his body hummed with. "Let's start," he breathed. The Night Fong swiped, claws flashing at his heart. Leon was quicker. Leon responded in an instant, one huge punch, his fist hitting the creature's ribcage. A crisp crack resounded. The sound reverberated sharply as the animal went down, a weak hiss on its lips. Stunned by the raw strength in his blow, Leon's eyes sparkled with subdued pride. "Guess my power has increased," he whispered. A gentle chime buzzed in his head, crisp and indelible. Ding! Host killed Novice Realm Beast. 5 blank points rewarded. A spark of excitement danced in Leon's eyes, his smile widening. This is just the start. Leon's gaze darted to the lifeless body laying among the fallen leaves, immaculately darkened by Night Fang's venom, icy still. A wry smile curled at his lips. "Thanks for the warm-up, buddy," he breathed softly, voice low and even. Turning aside, his eyes narrowed as he moved further into the wilderness. Every step was calculated, cautious, the snap of branches quieted under his trained steps. His senses were pulled taut, waiting for the next quarry. Within a few paces, a quiet tinkle resonated in his mind. Teammate Elite Gar number 2 killed Mortal Realm Monster. 1 blank point rewarded. Leon's smile deepened, a warm glow spreading through his chest. Bonus points already. Maybe this teamwork function isn't so bad after all. He thought about the new system's feature, how useful and clever it was, truly something remarkable. Then more notifications blinked into his system notification tab. Teammate Cynthia killed Novice Realm Beast. 5 blank points credited. Teammate Arya killed Novice Realm Beast. 5 blank points credited. Teammate Syra killed Novice Realm Beast. 5 blank points rewarded. Teammate Kyra killed Novice Realm Beast. 5 blank points rewarded. Teammate Elite Gar number 5 killed Novice Realm Beast. 5 blank points rewarded. Each ping was a beat in his veins, a rhythm of victory, and a reminder he wasn't working alone on this hunt. Pride filled him, but so did the need for more blank point. Taking a quick breath, he closed the window of the notification and allowed his mind to sharpen. If I want to gain more points, I must push further. Locate the Master Realm Beasts. Those are where the true rewards are. A menacing grin spread on his face, the thrill of the unknown beckoning him. Let's see what Green Grove Forest actually conceals. With fresh vigor, Leon dived into the ancient forest, darkness engulfing him as his hunt, properly commenced. Dance with the Earth-High Dreadmaw. An hour had gone by since Leon entered Green Grove Forest. It had been days. Trees closed in upon him, their gnarled forms standing like silent witnesses. The forest breathed not, too quiet, too still. The forest air was thick now, not with heat, but tension. The forest air was thick now, not with heat, but tension. Leon's robe, where it had been so smooth and clean before, had battle signs, torn, jagged tears on the sleeves, dirt and scratch marks that ran across his chest, and a few spots of blood. Those of the beast, not his own. The golden thread of his robe glowed softly in the moonlight, like starlight battle scars. He breathed and raised his head. The double moons were already up, casting an otherworldly, silvery light over Green Grove Forest. Shadows stretched out long on the forest floor. The trees appeared to share quiet, unintelligible secrets. At the feet of Leon, a fireclaw leopard was twisted into a heap, its striped coat burned, body half smashed by his last strike. One of its burning claws moved in the dirt, froze that a wispy trail of smoke curled up from Leon's extended hand. Guess that's the last of those. Temporarily, he murmured, wiggling his fingers. He offered a brief smile, not arrogant, but pleased. Voidbreaker art and my new pyromancy spell. Yeah, it seems they're quite a good combination. He looked over toward the far edge of the woods, where he'd promised to meet up with the others an hour from now. They're probably already waiting for me, or perhaps a bit anxious if I lingered too long. Leon gently shook his head and smiled. No need to keep my beauties waiting, he said wryly. Then, glancing one last time into the dark woods surrounding him, savoring the still pulsating excitement of a good fight in the air, he added, "And the hunt. Think I'll take my leave for today." With that, Leon turned. His footsteps were light, nearly playful, as he headed back, like a man who knew the forest would attempt again, but wouldn't succeed next time either. He'd taken barely 5 or 6 paces when a sharp crack resonated through the air. Crack! The ground shook beneath him, a ripple tearing through the earth. Leon halted in his step, senses heightened as he attempted to find the source of the sound. He turned sharply, eyes sweeping the darkness. Out of the darkness of the forest, a great form rushed forward, like a mountain bursting from among the trees. A monster emerged into the moonlight, its form a horror of raw power and old magic. Its hide was cracked stone, rock and living flesh combined, seeming as if the ground itself had been molded into its shape. Spiny, earthy protrusions ran down its back, vibrating softly with a soft, deadly, protective spell. Glowing jade eyes blazed with hot intelligence, burning through the darkness. Its great claws were granite blades, sharp, unyielding. 4 solid limbs rooted on the ground steadied a long, muscular tail that swept back of it, steadying each heavy step. The air thickened with the smell of wet ground and ancient rock. Leon's heart beat faster, not with terror, but with excitement. Earth-High Dreadmaw, he mused, a magical beast with strong earth affinity. Leon saw the thick, stony armor plating the creature's body. From it emanated a strong, constant vibration of earth element energy, an aura powerful enough to designate the creature as a real master from the master world of cultivation. A fierce glint flared in Leon's eyes. He moistened his lips with subdued passion and spoke calmly. Stepping back, he curled his fingers and moved into a relaxed fighting stance. His eyes remained fastened on the creature as it lumbered forward. Well, well, he smiled. Lady Luck certainly does want to dance with me tonight. The monster didn't tarry. The monster unleashed a bellow that shattered the night like thunder. Abruptly, it slammed an enormous fist onto the ground. Jagged shard-tone shards burst upward like an arrow storm, shooting directly towards Leon. He had barely time to respond. With an unaccountable twist, he activated Void Step, his Void Breaker art technique. A blast of wind shot up from under his boots as he blinked just beyond the flying shards. A shard scraped his thigh, sharp and burning, but he didn't falter. Nice shot, he smirked, but you'll have to try harder than that. /spell, Fire Fawn. A stream of fire lanced from Leon's palm, wrapping into the shape of a flaming wolf's jaw. It slammed into the Dreadmaw's chest, but the fire scattered across the beast's ruined armor plates, doing little more than scalding the surface. Leon clicked his tongue. Earth Affinity, he growled. Your defense is a pain in the butt. The beast retaliated with a loud roar, its tail cracking back and forth through the air like a whiplash, slicing a stiff gust as it whirred. Leon didn't wait. He charged forward full tilt, his body softly glowing with throbbing power, prepared to confront the beast head-on. As he unleashed the Void Breaker art, a weak luminescence permeated his body. His muscles undulated with concentrated power, poised to release with each movement. With each punch, the air shattered. He low-swept under the beast's leg and followed with a lightning-charged punch into its belly. /spell, Lightning Tempest Lance /. A jagged bolt of lightning exploded from his palm like a spear, but the monster deflected it with a forearm made of solid stone. Huh. Leon chuckled in mid-battle, no hint of fear in his tone. You're stronger than I thought right from the beginning. He was having a good time. Each parry, each dodge, each impact that vibrated through his arms and shuddered through his body. He did not feel pain, only the rush. His breath remained even. His mind calm as deep water. No distraction. Only he and his opponent, dancing to the death. Come on, buddy, he whispered tauntingly, moving around it. Let's make this a memory. But time was running out. The excitement still coursed through his veins, but now it was laced with something else, awareness. If he kept this up any longer, his guards, his women, they'd get anxious. They were most likely waiting at the forest's edge already. He couldn't delay further. He breathed slowly. All right, he whispered, eyes narrowing. Let's do this tactically. He goaded the monster, allowing it to swing again, giant stone claws ripping through the bark of an ancient tree behind him. He dodged left, but rather than strike, he was gone, employing Void Step footwork to become invisible. In the space of a heartbeat, he reappeared at the monster's back, low, quiet, and already half-spin. Then he opened up with his combo. Void Breaker art flooded his limbs, unbridled power coursing toward his fist. Meanwhile, he invoked his Fire Affinity spell, Fire Nova, fire roaring, magic tearing loose around his knuckles. A heavy thrum vibrated the air. The earth shook. He spun forward in an uppercut. The martial art energy tore into the monster's rune-garmented armor, tearing it like paper. A heartbeat later, flames burst from his fist in a deafening roar, illuminating the forest in a momentary flash of crimson and gold. Boom! The creature unleashed a garbled roar and stumbled back as cracks radiated through its stone-plated chest. Flames curled through the rents, burning deep. Roar! Its underarm plating shattered like dry bark. Leon didn't delay. He leaped up, 2 feet off the ground, storm energy churning into his palms like electric halos. As globes of lightning flickered around his fingers, he spoke in low and firm tones. Arc storm collapse. Pressure crackled overhead. Then he struck. He laid both hands flat, slammed down upon the beast's skull. Boom! A shattering shockwave ripped the forest quiet. The earth-high Dreadmaw unleashed a thunderous bellow of pain, its rocky body shuddering convulsively. Roar! Then fell, limbs twitching once before they froze. Dust hung suspended between them. Silence refell. Leon loomed above the defeated beast, panting slightly, not from fatigue, but from the strain of maintaining 2 spells for so long. The Earth-High Dreadmaw did not move, its charred, cracked armor cooling in the pale moonlight, wisps of smoke curling around its shattered stone plates. A slow, pleased smile spread across Leon's face. "Fighting you, buddy, is highly rewarding," he drawled, eyes aglow with respect and exhilaration. With a light, effortless jump, he landed gracefully on the forest floor, ready to move on. Ding. You have slain a Master Realm magical beast. Plus 10 blank points. Leon's eyes roamed over the beast's shattered body, the cracked stone armor, the glowing fractures etched deep into its skin. A slow, amused grin spread across his face. "You're a good opponent, buddy," he said quietly, a note of genuine respect in his voice. "I respect that." He knelt, fingers touching the broken armor. "If I left you here, you'd just decay, or low-level creatures would descend upon you and devour your carcass," Leon said with a grin, "bringing your species and your cultivation status down with you." He bent next to the fallen beast, gaze keen. "I respect you too much to let that occur. That's why I brought you along. Me, my women, and my underlings, there's nothing better than to show respect by devouring your body. That's how I pay homage to you, buddy," he remarked with a calm, assertive grin, as if he was doing the right thing. His smile grew wider, eyes piercing and firm. "I'm stronger than you, so it's only right. This way, your soul will feel honored, feasted on by someone stronger than you, not some low-level beast. That's no disgrace." Leon's gaze lifted to the dark sky, the twin moons glowing softly. A small smile touched his lips as he said, "Maybe this will give your soul some peace." His tone grew softer, infused with reluctance and a quiet love, as if he longed to say, "I don't want to do this, but I must. For you, buddy." Leon stretched, cracking his neck with a loud pop, then looked up at the twin moons for the final time. "All right, buddy, let's get you out of here." He knelt and took hold of the beast's huge tail, wrapping his fingers around it firmly as he experienced its hard, rock-like texture beneath his grip. With an experienced movement, he hooked the tail over his shoulder, the weighty bulk settling there like a burden and a prize. As he dragged the body up, the ground under the collapsed monster appeared to grow darker, leaving a dark stain where its strength had been ripped asunder. The trees seemed to be silent for a moment, as if they were holding their breath. A contented smile played on Leon's face as he walked steadily towards the border of the forest. The monstrous body trailed behind him, with its weighty tail slung over his shoulders. He grumbled to himself, "Let's see what my lovely hunters brought back. Hope everyone finds something exceptional." The moon of silver danced in the forest with soft, pale light, casting a gentle glow between the treetops as Leon stepped steadily through the woods. Behind him, the Earth-High Dreadmaw's enormous body hung lifeless, its massive size dwarfed by his. Leon balanced its jagged, thick tail over his shoulder with a casual lack of effort. Where even smaller human would have been crushed under such weight, Leon bore it as a trophy, no strain apparent in his steps. The creature's girth cut deep into the ground, snapping roots, fallen leaves, and crushing stones along an uneven, bumpy path. His boots walked firmly over thorns and knotted roots with never a second thought, a sharp, straight line through the trees. His robe was ripped from somewhere and streaked with dirt, dark hair blown and battered by wind and combat. Those moments now and again swept across his eyes, and shallow burn marks running along his right shoulder. But none of this muted the fierce glint in his eyes, or the broad grin that did not go away. Though the weight was crushing, Leon was more entertained than fatigued. Every step in advance was counted, not because he was exhausted, but because with every step, a transparent system panel glowed softly within his field of view. He said with a glance at the hovering system panel glowing softly within his field of view. You have earned 38 blank points for killing a magical beast. The mechanical bell rang softly within his mind. Leon arched an eyebrow, near amusement. 38 points just for me. He grumbled, half to himself, half to the system. An idea struck, and with a blink of his mind, he opened another window on the system panel. /Aria, 33 blank points. /Cynthia, 34 blank points. /Syra, 28 blank points. /Kyra, 32 blank points. The total for the women was 127 points. Effortless as always. A slight smile played on his lips. Total of elite guards, 70 blank points. The 5 top-level guards had defeated some lower-level magical beasts, mortal realm or novice rank, and scored a decent 70 points. Not too shabby, given their level of cultivation as peak novice level. Leon kept pulling the enormous beast, calculating mentally. 38 from me, added to 127 from the ladies, added to 70 from the guards. He halted mid-stride, a thrill of excitement running through him. Another blink from the panel. Total, 235 blank points. A low whistle slipped out of him. If he'd add in those 235 points to his former total. A blank point. The system panel flashed briefly in light. Previous total. 184 blank points, new total, for 119 blank points. Leon halted his pace. His heart pounded in his chest, not from fatigue, but sheer exhilaration. A big grin spread across his face. For 119, his voice fell to a whisper, full of awe. Damn, this amount of blank points is sufficient to purchase a Master Realm treasure at the system store. He continued on his way, pulling the corpse of the Dreadmaw behind him, the heavy path broadening with every step like a war banner dragging across the earth. His thoughts sped along, already planning the most efficient use of the 419 points, what spells to study, what weapons to buy, what skills to acquire. The exhilaration of the hunt coursed through him, lighting a flame in his eyes that was not tiredness but intense anticipation. This hunt, he whispered, was more than worth it. This new system function wasn't just convenient. The teamwork feature in the quest panel was downright ingenious. Powerful, intuitive, dangerously addictive, it changed everything. Mind-boggling, he whispered. Now I can actually pick and choose master-grade techniques, spells, artifacts, maybe even crafting schematics. His steps grew lighter, almost playful, as the forest began to thin. Behind him, the heavy body of the Dreadmaw was dragged through the mud, leaving a trail of his path like a testicular reminder of his increased strength. But now his thinking was quick, 2 courses running simultaneously. One figuring out what to spend, how to make the 419 points count. The other already planning. How do I make even more next time? The craving had not gone away. If anything, it had intensified. A hunter's craving, a conqueror's drive. And as the trees grew thinner,